time.
Full time with a capital P.
See, I didn't pay attention to that.
Okay. Is it showing on your channel?
Lowercase.
Lowercase, thank you.
This one.
Stephanie, is it popped up?
I'm sorry, I was helping her with it.
Okay, it shows that we're live.
This is the way. Let me get out of it completely.
No, can't.
Is it
Yes,
showing?
we're live.
Okay.
We're live. Okay.
Can everybody hear?
Sorry about that, y'all.
We're ready? Okay. Madam Secretary, do we have an association quorum? No. No? Okay, so we will not have an association meeting. We'll have a regular board meeting. And I will call the meeting to order. Do we have a quorum? We do. Is Joyce here?
She's she couldn't be on property today.
Okay, we still have a quorum.
We do, without.
Okay, all right, so we'll begin the meeting. And do you have the agenda?
Yes.
We'll begin with, we've done the roll call, so approval of the unapproved meeting minutes as distributed. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes as distributed?
I'd like to make a motion that the meeting minutes of 11/20/23, 11/21/23 be approved as read and distributed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Okay, so we have one absent and 4 in favor. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start with the president's report. All good news this morning. No bad news, which is really, really, I think it's good. And by the way, this narrative and everything that was mailed, the new budget and all the financial stuff is in the mail today. It was in the mail yesterday, according to our bylaws, so we had to get that out yesterday. So everybody's going to receive a copy of the revised 1031 financial statements, a copy of the new proposed budget, and there'll be a narrative. You're going to get this in the mail. When are we going to post this online?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, but we don't have the narrative.
The narrative's not posted yet.
Okay, so we'll get a narrative, which is about a 3 or 4 page narrative that'll go over the financials and cover a lot of the things that we're talking about. That'll be available online probably this afternoon. I'll get that to you, Lynn. If you don't get it today, we'll get it up by Monday.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll do that. So the good news is, and the board's been working the last month or so, trying to get the budget resolved, and there's some other issues that we'll talk about. But the good news is there's not going to be any increase for dues in 2024. So we're able to continue forward, even though our revenue is up. Our revenue is slightly off, and we're going to talk about that, and our expenses are up. We are able to make some changes that allow us to remain perfectly flat. So there won't be any dues increase in 2024. Because we have so many of our owners that have joined since Hurricane Sally, we were going to go back and talk a little bit about where we've been and how far we've come financially and some of the difficulties that we've gone through this last year. We want to bring everybody up to speed. It's no secret that I wasn't really enthusiastic about running for the board this last year, but I felt like we had to continue forward with some of the financial obligations that we had to clear up. And so I went ahead and ran. I considered stepping down at the end of this year. It's been a long 3 years for me. It's hard to describe how many hours the board puts in, everybody puts in. But for me, it's been into the thousands of hours, probably over 3,000 hours in 3 years. So it's been a lot of work. But in discussions with other board members, I went ahead and decided I'd stick it out for the next year. So I'll be around for another year, and I won't be, and then I'll be off the board at the end of 2024. But I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed working with everybody. That means that we're going to have 3 positions that'll be up for election in January. One will be the seat that Joyce is holding now. She was appointed to that seat. That was a 2-year term that expires at the end of 24, but our bylaws require us to have an election for that. So that seat will be up. That'll be a 1-year position, and then there will be 2 2-year positions. the positions that are held by Tammy and Stephanie will be vacant, will be up. And as always, we encourage everybody that wants to participate to get involved as much as you possibly can with the board and those activities. And I'll be available, as we've talked, to help in any way that I can going forward. It doesn't matter to me if I'm president or not next year. We're really a team. We all work together as a team. And if they want me to, I will, or I may take a different position or just be at large. It doesn't really matter. I'd like to kind of slow down and transition over to the next board. We're going to go back and talk just a little bit about where we were and where we are, because we have some really good news financially for everybody. But less than 3 years ago, we were insolvent. We had about $33 million worth of damage. We had about $25 million worth of insurance. We were embroiled in 3 lawsuits for millions of dollars. The board that was here before Hurricane Sally and during Hurricane Sally had made the decision, rightfully so, to eliminate Coastal as the property management company. They notified Coastal and then hired Vacasa. Vacasa was going to come in January 1st. Sometimes when you let somebody go but you keep them on, you're not getting the work that you would have expected. And the property management company failed to do their responsibility financially. And when the new board took over after Sally, that property management company could not provide us with any financial records. In fact, when we tried to audit 2020, our audit company wouldn't allow us to do it because there were no financial records. So we began the process, and following Hurricane Sally, we were technically insolvent. We had the insurance company was concerned about how we were managing the money here. We had a lot of difficulties taking over and getting started, but we were basically bankrupt. We had no cash. So we had to work with the insurance companies and the contractors that were selected to try to rebuild the resort, even though we had $33 million worth of damage and only $25 million worth of funds to do it. So that's where we began, and we had no financial records. So our goal was to try to create solvency, to try to get us back to a strong financial position, guide us through the reconstruction from Hurricane Sally, get good financial controls in place, and restore the integrity and the transparency of our finances, which we've been able to do, I think, at the end of this year. But it's taken a long time to be able to do that. During this process, when we first came on board, we discovered within 2 weeks, that there was a little over $1 million missing from the association funds. We involved the FBI in that. We were able to recover all 100% of the $1.2 million that was because of a wire fraud transfer that initiated with the previous. I have to be careful what I say because we have non-disclosures, but it's still an active investigation, I guess. But the genesis of that fraud began with the previous property management company that was here during Sally and extended to the new property management company. And so as a result, the financial conversion that we did to the new financial company, the property management company, we had to sever that relationship with them and go to yet another property management company. We were with that company for a while trying to set up the finances during a time when we were rebuilding from Sally. And that company was unable to work with us to do the finances in the correct way. We made the decision to go with Anchor, which ended up being a mistake. Once again, these property management companies promise you that they can do all the financial side, the back end. They failed to do that. And as a result, over the course of this year, I think it was about March, that Joel and I informed the board that Anchor Management did not provide the audit that they were supposed to provide during the transition, that they didn't. It's hard to describe how badly they dropped the ball in the first 8 weeks of this year. And so as a result, we began looking for an alternative, and we decided to go with a professional accounting firm to handle all our financials, and that was Grant Sanders and Taylor. And so for about the last 7 months, we've been working with Grant Sanders and Taylor going back. We audited 2022. We audited to try to find every penny that was there. We had to go back through every transaction. We had to go back through every journal entry. It was an exhausting process to get 2022 closed out correctly, and then we had to go back and work on 2023. We're now, I think, in a great position because we've finished those financials and we've got some pretty good, Joel and I have been working on that. We've got some really good, clean financials that we're able to post and put up for the association to see. I want to talk about a little bit about the structure and how we've done it. The old property management structure was really expensive. It was a dinosaur. It's very inefficient, doesn't really work anymore. Associations are trying to find new ways to manage their property. And by the way, one of the things that makes our association so difficult is our size and the complexity of our association. We are bigger than all 3 phases of Kiva Dunes combined, and we are about half the size of the other 4 phases here at Plantation combined. And as Grant Sanders and Taylor's characterized it, we have one of the largest, most complex associations that they deal with down here on the island. So we have a lot of participants in our association. It's a lot of money and it's a big business. But working with Grant Sanders and Taylor, we've become compliant. We've become compliant with Alabama and federal laws, and we've also been compliant with the general and accepted accounting principles, GAAP, so that we're doing things correctly. We're booking revenue and expenses correctly. And I think you're going to see that we're finally in a really good place. So what we've done is we've hired Grant Sanders and Taylor to handle all the financial and administrative side of the business. And they've been getting more and more involved in this as more and more associations down here have turned to an accounting firm because of the sloppy nature of the bookkeeping that had gone on in their associations. And so they had grown this segment of their business. There's a couple locations down here on the coast, but they're just right down the road if you need to see them in person. So Grant Sanders and Taylor takes over all the financial side. They handle all the questions that you're going to have about dues and about assessments, anything that relates to the financial administration or the costs that are associated with the business. They're handling all that. They're even going to work with us on our annual meeting. They handle a lot of the mailings, and we're working with professional CPAs that keep us, pretty much in line. So they're handling all that financial side. The second part of our operating structure, we have Triton, who is moving into complete facility management. What we're trying to do as a board is get out of running the association on a day-to-day basis, which is what we've done for the last 3 years. We'd like to become a real board again, where people manage the property, we manage the people that are managing the property, and we look at the results and we deal with policy. But until we get those processes in place, and we know how painful a lot of the processes are, don't we, Taylor? We have to stay involved, but we're getting very close. So by putting Triton in charge of all the facilities, what we're able to do then is have the vendors accountable to them, landscaping, housekeeping, security, and all that will be reporting through Triton so that we have accountability there. We're not engaged in trying to micromanage all these different processes. We try to manage the problems as they occur. So we have a facility manager now. That allows us to have a human being on property, at least 7 days a week for 8 hours a day. So we have somebody from maintenance that's here, from facilities management, 7 days a week. And some of the days during the week, they overlap. Sometimes they're here much earlier because they work on pools, but somebody's here. Most of the questions that happen and most of the problems that arise are related around facilities and maintenance. And so we put an effort to try to make sure that we shore that side of the business up. The other part of the business is questions you have about accounting and assessments and how things work and billing and all that. And that's over with Grant Sanders and Taylor. And then in between, anything that's not handled by Grant Sanders and Taylor and anything that isn't handled under facilities, we have an administrative assistant, which is the role that Lynn plays. And so Lynn's role then is to handle communication, things that are not handled by the facility manager, not handled by finance, and anything that falls into that is where Lynn works. And really, she's working as an administrative assistant for the board to be able to communicate, process, put things up, and make things happen for us and run things down for us when it's not the responsibility of the facility and it's not the responsibility of the financial side. As we look, and we're going to get into the budget in just a moment, and I'll talk about that during the financial review, but one of the ways that we were flat, if you look at the 23 budget and you look at how much money we were spending with Anchor, for instance, we were spending $64,800 a year with Anchor. So In the 2024 budget, that's broken down differently, where we spend 30,000 of that 64,000 with Grant Sanders and Taylor to handle our monthly processing and all our accounting and administrative side. That leaves us with $34,800 a year to contribute towards an administrative assistant. So the same dollars that we were spending with Anchor for the administrative assistant part and their failed financial side, we're still spending today. We've just broken it down. Grant Sanders and Taylor takes 30, and we have 34,800 for our administrative assistant. And that's how that breaks down, but no increase in dollars at all. So before I get into the budget and some of the financial part, I just wanted to give you an overview of how we're operating, and you're going to hear some really good financial news as we go through this. So I'm going to turn it over to Tammy.
Okay, just kind of want to piggyback onto what Bill's saying about some examples, and rightfully so. We hear a lot of questions about who's accountable on property and what we're doing. It has been a lot going on, and I'll just simplify it by saying that. But some examples of what we're asking for Triton is, what's your process for, we had one of our the laundry guy, there was an issue with an outlet. What is the process that one of our, a vendor turns in a work request? How does that get tracked? Did that happen? Did it not happen? We want to have Triton present to us staff changes. If they have to let somebody go, who's the person on site? I talked to Scott one time, and he had gone through with me, he'd gone through about 90 some tickets that had been, I want to say, lower importance, and he worked through all that. Had his staff touching up doors, had his staff take off all the bug lights and clean out all the bugs when we were off season. Those are just some examples that my suggestion was, I think it'd be great for the owners. We need to see that. To put in a highlight of this section into the newspaper that Stephanie does. Possibly when a staff member changes, let's have a picture of their face. Who's that walking around, because we're paying them, they're ours. If you see them on property, a quick hi and keep going, because we're expecting them, and not as a board, but as fellow owners, they should be working when they're here. Something that came up when we were going through the bills that kind of hit with several of us board members. I'm going to talk just briefly about trash. And this is just an example for transparency purposes. If we have a dumpster that's overflowing, meaning the lids can't close, we get charged $162.50 additional. So, if you're an owner and you're out here, please put trash in the empty dumpster. It feels silly that we have to say that, and yes, we expect our paid staff to be able to do that. But we as owners can own some of that too if we see it happening on property. If you have your unit managed by an outside venue or manager, then if there's a mattress or something, we pay for a roll-off. I asked, do we really need to keep that on there? But we do want to keep it there because unfortunately we'd start seeing even more mattresses, couches, whatever left in inappropriate places, and that costs each of us a lot of money, guys. As well as we don't want it to look like the Sanford and Son junkyard. So I just think it's good to be aware of how we all can own some of that. I asked questions because now that we've got Grant Sanders and Taylor on site, we're getting these mailed, because I've had owners ask me about the mailed statements. I think he said so far since they've been on board, it's $2,500 in postage that we pay.
Roughly, yes.
So I don't know, do we need to entertain that? Do we want to keep on doing that? Do we want to go to an email system? I talked to the Steve with Quality Laundry Vending, and it just kind of got, I guess, by the wayside. But we would like to add vending machines into the laundry rooms because that's income potential. All the things that Bill's saying, there's things that we can't change, like insurance. But how can we get more revenue coming in? I'm not saying this is going to happen, but we're dancing around with an idea of making this office space smaller, maybe putting some vending machines in here. Again, just for the purpose of having income potential. When I talked to Steve, he's got I don't think we have the room or the space, unfortunately, but they're arcade rooms. And he's paying some other associations $1,500 to $2,000 a week that they're making on arcade rooms. So we don't have the space to have that amount of arcade rooms, but again, it's just for transparency of things that we're looking into, ways that we can get more income potential coming in so that we don't have to keep dishing out of our pockets. Landscaping, talked to somebody earlier in the year for that, and I think we're just about ready to zero in on a new landscaping opportunity, which then brings up we can plant all these things and clean up all these things, but as we all know, every living thing needs water. So do we patch up the existing lawn sprinkler, or do we as owners fork out more money to have it all replaced? Because a lot of that was damaged by Claremont after Sally. And again, my only comments on this, or the board's only comments on this, is just for awareness that, yeah, we're aware of it. But like everything, even in our own private homes, one thing leads to another bill, to more money, to that. But we're just at a point as a 40-year property that we've already been putting out a lot of money, and how we're trying to attack these things without hitting our own pockets or your pockets any more than we already are. So I
Sprinkler
just,
system is working right now.
basically, yeah, I don't know that it's working all over
It's working right now.
Maurice, okay, yeah. So there's a deal, okay, maybe it has a
Some
rain gauge
places.
timer on it. So, because it's definitely pouring down rain. But anyway, that was just kind of an overview. I just wanted to kind of take it down further because of some of the questions I've had owners ask me. So there's that information for all of you on that.
Can I ask a quick, this seems like a very minor thing, but if you're short, they used to have steps that you could step up onto so you could open the trash to put it in. It's extremely difficult to try to hold it up and get up there and get your bag in there with one hand. And I would like them to put those steps back in that were there before Sally, so short people can get the trash.
I totally forgot about that. There were steps there. We
I
had
believe
steps.
Scott's working on that, by the way.
Is he?
Okay.
Yes,
Would
he
you
mentioned it
follow-
a few
would you-
weeks ago, yeah.
Coming out of this meeting, would you follow through with that?
That is a good recommendation. And then I'm going to say also, if the lid's closed, hopefully that means it's full, and we want to keep it closed. So there's that. But I guess when it's raining, we also don't want it to fill with water. So if somebody lifts up a lid and the trash can's full, because we just, like I just
lifted
said,
up and it's not full, but
I
it's
know.
hard to.
I'm just saying, in addition to that, we're paying $162.50 if it gets overflowed per dumpster. We had a trash bill that was over $7,000.
And if it's open and full and you can get the trash in, that's the problem. If you're short, you can't get it in, the ones that are, it's
Right.
difficult. Sometimes a person will come to your aid, but like it is now, there's no.
We'll
other-
address the steps.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get those steps.
Am I mistaken, or at one time, was there some discussion with the utility company about getting some payment for what's on our property out there?
There, and then we'll take this question, and we'll take the questions at the end, but I'll answer that question. The pump house is, over here is, this, where the sewer is, with Baldwin County Sewer. We sued them because they wouldn't pay us, they wouldn't compensate us for using our property and our facility to pump sewage for the other phases. Now, at one time, we were all on Baldwin County Sewer, but a board, Maurice probably can remember this, way back before Steve Hammonds, they decided that, we could make an investment, get off of Baldwin County, go to Gulf Shores Utility and save money over a period of time. And so we're no longer using it. There's a good old boy. This is Alabama. And, I'm sure there's problems in New Jersey and other places like that. I'll just say that we should have won that case. And it was denied at a lower level. We appealed it to the state Supreme Court, and they chose not to hear it. So we would have had to invest in a lot more money to litigate, to push it beyond that point. And at that point, we decided the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And so we did not pursue the appeal to the Supreme Court.
I just didn't know that.
And just know that it's just unfortunate. It's just the way it works. It's politics. I think we were clearly in the correct position. The president at the time was an attorney, president of the association, the other attorney, but it just didn't seem financially viable to go after it. So, and then we just discovered that there's a laundry building up on the property here that nobody knows who owns it. And so we're kind of running that down. We don't own it, but along that line, trying to figure out who owns what and what the property lines are, that's another discussion. But we'll take questions at the end if you don't mind. Stephanie? Treasurer's report.
Yeah.
For those of y'all that don't know, I'm Joel Callahan. I'm the treasurer this year. I'm not going to belabor the point. Bill is going to go through the budget and answer a lot of questions, but what he alluded to earlier, the compliance with procedures with the accepted accounting procedures has been a big shift for us because in the past it has not been followed. So having to change the way we do business. Through the course of getting Grant Sanders and Taylor to do our accounting, we've come up with and discovered that security for the other phases, we pay, they pay a percentage, has not been accorded the correct way. So the numbers are off. They're going back and correcting all of that right now. A lot of miscategorization of funds where the money was there. It was just in another bucket at the time. So it skewed our budget. So we spent a lot of time coming down and emails and YouTube or Google Meets, trying to figure out where money needs to go. And also the other side of that was payments were not posted appropriately. I'm sure all of us have been victims of the Appfolio, hey, you owe this much money. And you know you don't because you're looking at your bank statement, your ledger, and it's drafted and things like this. The money prior to August was going different places. There was a lot of problems with that. Hopefully that's been resolved. I know Ms. Lynn has worked a lot to get Appfolio to say it's zero.
It should say zero.
That's another funny,
That's a weird one.
it's a very interesting program that has a lot of benefit, and you just have to find out what button to turn off or on. But our accounting is solid now. We're in a positive cash position, and it's good to know that. I'm not an accountant, but I can look at, we're supposed to spend this, we spent this, oh my goodness, that means I'm in the hole. And I think about it with my personal budget at home, where we all have them, and you look at it and go, where did this money go? It was still there. It was just put in the wrong bucket, on the wrong category. So we spent a lot of time doing that. But I am happy to say that we are looking at a lot of different things. It's an exciting time. It's scary. And we're moving forward like a herd of turtles. And thank you for your support and for coming in and talking about it.
You want to just address recovering the cost?
Oh, yes. So this interesting thing from January to August, when Anchor was doing their deal, they didn't live up to the letter of their contract. What they said they were going to do, the things that they were going to take care of with accounting and bookkeeping and things like this. When we engaged Grant Sanders and Taylor, we had the discussion with Anchor Management saying that whatever it cost us to get our financials where I can actually post them on Appfolio and look at them and feel comfortable with the numbers, whatever that cost is going to go back to them. And we're about 1.5 inches from being able to do that now. We should have all the final numbers by the middle of December. My drop dead date is December 15th to write the letter saying this is what you owe us. And supposedly, knock on wood, that that's going to be taken care of because they have some mechanisms in place to pay this money to us. So we will recover about half of what we spent on accounting this year from them.
And that's a big get, and that's because of the negligence that it's hard to explain to people unless you're really involved in it. And you know, you guys have watched, and Joel and I have dug through a lot of this stuff. How quickly you can get into a mess from an accounting perspective when the wrong numbers are posted and they're posted to the wrong accounts, and then other things aren't being paid. We knew when people were saying, my monthly bill isn't right, this isn't right. We were also hearing, you haven't paid the landscaper. The landscaper hadn't been paid for 10 invoices, and this wasn't getting done. And all of a sudden, all these red flags popped up. For us to go through this, we had to go through every single transaction, every credit card, every charge, every dollar that moved in and out of the bank, every accounts receivable, every accounts payable. This was really a complex process to go through, and it makes you want to pull your hair out a little bit trying to go through it, but we had to go through it to get it right so that we could have a good beginning from 2022. We had a good basis to begin 2023, and then we had to go back and clean up all of 2023 while we're still doing business. And by the way, during this process, you know, we fired Claremont for cause. We were concerned that Claremont, we knew from vendors that were subcontractors under Claremont that they had not paid those subcontractors. We knew that we were exposed to $1 million plus worth of liability. Under Alabama law, they had 90 days from the time that they completed their work here to file liens on the property. And we were very concerned, that during this process, while our accounting was bad, we were very concerned that we were going to get involved in where they would put liens on all of our property. And that was a very real possibility in the first part of this year. It does no longer exist. We're out of that window. We don't have that liability anymore. But we were dealing with that, trying to find financial records to prove to these subcontractors that in fact we had paid Claremont for the work that they had not been paid for. And so we ran all that down on top of everything else we were doing. So it's been a very, very difficult year. But in order to go through this we had to go through this process to fix things and to get it right once and for all. And you can feel very, very comfortable with Grant Sanders and Taylor, and you'll feel very comfortable when you see what we've done here as we get into the budget. Is that it?
Yes, sir. I'm done.
And the secretary's report. Stephanie?
Yes, thank you. The biggest thing, is we're still hearing a lot of people that are saying they're not getting information. Well, keeping that email address up to date, that's something I keep reminding in the newsletters, is make sure you have that contact update information with Ms. Adams and me so that we can get that to y'all. Make sure you have your in-portfolio. Lynn and I are constantly, we spend a lot of part of our week trying to make sure y'all have access to it because we're pouring in and getting that information for y'all. And a lot of times I'll say, hang on, like a lot of times I'll get individual questions and they're like, what is this? Well, it's in the newsletters, it's in that folio. A lot of that information is out there. And sometimes it's, if you're having difficulty getting to that, accessing that, that's something I've encouraged people to reach out to me and Lynn about so we can get you to that information. The biggest thing too is contributing to the newsletters. Several people will write things and that's where we can communicate, work together as a community. So just let me know about, things are going out. That's by the 10th of the month. And thank y'all for that. Those are going to try to come today and have beautification today, but it's kind of raining outside. It's thundering. So sorry about the live feed earlier. We were having some technical difficulties. Thank you for waiting out for us. The other thing is we are, Bill talked about how the budget is going to be mailed out to y'all because it was yesterday, along with our October finances. We also have the nomination form for those that want to run for the 2024 board. We also have the notice of that meeting. It's on January 13th of 2024. And Bill's already reviewed what's available for those seats. But just make sure that you're getting those proxies to me so we can have those by the 29th, because that's what our documents say. We've got to have it out there. And then make sure you're getting those nominations in by the 15th so I can put them in there. Because a lot of people ask who's running, what's going to be that. So I can get that information back out to y'all. So it is a busy time. And I should answer the emails, but if there's not, I thank everybody for kind of helping us work together during that busy time, because it is. But there's exciting thing happening, and I'm excited that we're getting there.
We're going to go ahead and start with the unfinished business, which is the 2024 budget discussion. As we look at and you'll be able to see this online, but as we go through the budget, and we went through 2023 and compared it to 2024, we were off on revenue, and we had a shortfall of revenue. We lost we didn't lose, but we were under our expectation with storage rooms by about $3,000. And we corrected that in the budget going forward. That's not a big miss. Laundry, we were off by $17,500 from our projection in 2023. And the reason we had that shortfall, if you remember, we had a lot of bad equipment that we were trying to replace. We were investing in washing machines. It was not a good solution. For a period during the summer when it was our high revenue point, we had problems with our laundry. We had to give free laundry to people during that period. So we were off. Going forward, the board decided to work a partnership with the new vendor. Tammy, you were involved in that, weren't you?
Yeah.
And putting together a vendor relationship where they make the investment in the equipment, they keep the equipment new, they service the equipment. We're not getting dinged and getting bills that we're not prepared to find, but we go into a revenue sharing arrangement with them where they make the investment, they put the equipment in, and we split the revenue with them. So in the budget in 2023, we missed on laundry by $17,500, and that's what we put into the 2024 budget. So our 2024 budget for laundry is half of what it was in 2023.
If I can interject one
Sure.
thing right there.
Absolutely.
So some of the problems he faced is the same things you guys faced in buildings 1, 2, and 3 was our internet. Well, that's getting resolved because now we're bringing in ceasefire. So people, I think, questioned the choice of that new person and the new equipment. But again, one thing, like the guys have said before, it's like an onion. It just, you fix one area and it uncovers another problem. So I just wanted to remind people, if they remember some problems in the beginning, the internet situation was part of that. And it's getting fixed.
Yeah, and so that's why we're off on laundry. Shared services, we had projected in this year that we were going to get $25,000. And that's for charging the other associations for using our basketball courts, our tennis court, our shuffleboard, our horseshoes, they don't have those facilities. The ones that the Dunes does occupy over here, they're dilapidated, they're run down. It costs money to run these courts. This is one of the big issues we had. The other association said, we got used to not paying during the pandemic, and we got used to not paying when you were shut down. So we're tight on our budget. So we really think that, because you can use our pools and we use your pools, we should just let it go. Now, we don't allow them to use the indoor facility. So trying to collect this money, we didn't receive any money from shared services. And so it's one of the things that we're debating right now. How hard do we want to push this? Because the issue comes back to keep people from using our basketball and tennis courts, we'd have to find a way to lock them up and to use secured cards. And then we have to figure out how to get security over there and more money. And so the question is, how hard do we want to go about this? How hard do we want to hit the other associations? Do we want to come up with other policies or ways around it? So the board's working on that right now. But for the 2024 budget, we did not put any money in for shared services. So if we can pick some money up from shared services, that's going to be a gain for us in the 2024 budget. Maintenance, we had projected that we could do $25,000 in revenue from in-unit maintenance by coming up with a maintenance program. We talked about that at the January meeting, where we would charge owners so much and we would get the filters changed and we would be in there. The problem that we had was labor and turnover. It's absolutely insane down here, trying to get people out here to work. We talk about that all the time, unless you live down here and you have an electrician that's supposed to be at your house for the last 2 weeks, in my case, and they don't show up. But that's just kind of the way it works, and trying to get people to be here and get things done has really been a problem for us. So maintenance we had turnover in the maintenance area, and during the summer, it's like a bidding war for college football players. These guys, they'll pay anything, and they'll jump jobs during the summer, and then of course in the off season they'll come back, and you have these issues. We're going to try to get in-unit maintenance up and running next year, but we didn't put any money in the budget for that. So if we do get this up and running next year, there'll be $25,000 we may be able to recover, but we're not going to bank on it. So if you look at our revenue shortfall going into 2024, we have about, some of our revenue is up a little bit. That amounts to about $70,000 that we're not going to have going into next year. So our revenue is down in 2024, and our expenses are slightly up in 2024. And as we get into that and we ask ourselves, well, how does that work? How can we not raise the dues and this is going to get a little complicated, but how can we not raise the dues if our revenue's down and our expenses are slightly up? And the answer to that question is we've been extremely conservative in the way we've approached our finances during the last year or two. Part of what we do is in part of your dues is to go towards a reserve allocation for future projects. And that reserve, we're required by law, or I think the IRS, but we're required to maintain at least 10% of the annual dues has to be put into a reserve. That's just the minimum. We've always been above that. That puts us at about $150,000, $180,000. We have to always retain that, and I'll talk about where that's at. But we've been reserving since Hurricane Sally in 21 and 22. We bumped that up to $340,200. So instead of reserving prior to Hurricane Sally, this association reserved $170,000 each year, went into a capital reserve account. After Hurricane Sally, we moved it to $340,000. That was part of your dues because we didn't know where we were going to be financially. So we bumped that up there. So beginning with the 2024 budget, we reduced the reserve allocation from $340,000 $200 back down to $170,000, which was the level in 2020. That meets all our financial requirements. And quite honestly, because we're assessing and we're making these capital improvements, I think that's a bit too aggressive anyway for a reserve allocation. So by reducing it by $170,000, that frees up cash flow that allows us then to be able to balance the budget. What we did on the expense side was, even though we reduced the reserve allocation by $170,000, we picked up $115,000 of expenses for uninsured. Because post Hurricane Sally, with our new insurance, our deductibles went from $10,000 to $100,000 per occurrence. So when we have a water leak in one of the units and we've got to step in and fix it, we don't turn that into insurance, because almost in every case it's below $100,000. It's below our deductible. So as you'll notice in the 2024 budget, as you go through it, you'll see that there's $115,000 of expense that was never there before, and we call that uninsured expense. And the difference between the $115,000 and the $170,000 that we conserved is exactly the shortfall. So from a cash perspective, we still pay the same amount of dues. The difference is some of our dues that would have gone to reserve allocation is slightly less than it was last year, and our expenses are slightly higher. But cash to us is exactly the same and allows us not to increase and I know that's kind of a complicated thing. As we look at the budget, it's flat. You can see that there are a few other accounts we've broken out and added a few accounts. We broke out the accounting and the admin so that it clearly reflects what I spoke about the accounting expense and about the expense for the admin support. We clearly delineated the facilities part so that we can see where our Triton money goes. And then we removed it shows up in our financials, but out of the budget are the extraordinary things like the window project and all that. We deal with that in our financial side. In our balance sheet, now this is some really good news, okay? So the bad news was, we had to do the window project. And when we started the window project, we found out that our balconies were bad. So we had to eat that and proceed with the balcony project. And I should say that we are now, we're consulting with some people. Next week, we're going to create we'll put out a letter to everybody as we start to talk about the window and door assessment. It's the board's opinion that a significant portion of what we have assessed the association for, the windows and doors and the balconies, was actually leftover damage from Hurricane Sally. Now, one of the things that we were dealt with in terminating Claremont at the beginning of the year is there was work that was left undone that they should have done. We held money for that. There was work that they did inappropriately that we knew we would discover as we went through this year, and we found out mistakes that they made, mistakes that the subcontractors made. We've had to rewire panels. We've had to spend money to fix things, but we had cash set aside for that as we've gone through this. So as we get into 2024, we feel like we've identified most of those things. We think we've funded most of those things. And so what we've been able to do is look at how much cash we have. I think there was some questions from some of the owners at the last meeting, what's our cash position? On the balance sheet, when you go to look at the balance sheet, you'll see National Bank of Commerce CD, and we hold in that $185,000. That's a requirement that we maintain at least 10% of our annual dues in a reserve. And then we have to reserve that each month or each year. But you'll see the Centennial Special Assessment Account, and you'll see the Centennial Special Assessment Sweep. That's about $584,000. The board, a couple of weeks ago, we have to create a motion to change funds. So anytime we spend money on something that was designated for something else, the board, to do it correctly, has to create a motion and reclassify those funds. So we reclassified the special assessment funds and the assessment sweep, which was about $580,000. And on the year of the 1031 financials, you'll see it listed under operating, but we're moving that money from the operating account over to reserves, which means that money will be spent on capital projects, not on expenses. So anytime you move money from a capital project designation to expense, you're supposed to do that. And anytime you move money that was designated for expenses over to capital, you're required to do that as well. So we've moved $584,000 over there. we already had 68,000 and 407,000, excluding the 185,000 in reserve. So we ended up with, before the project, we had, in this association, we had almost $2 million of cash. And we were able to conserve that cash by being extremely conservative, by not paying Claremont the balance of the agreement, by reserving other cash, and by holding other monies from other contractors. And for other ways, we were able to squirrel away that much money. Now, we weren't sure where it was going to be. We didn't mean to not be 100% transparent, but we didn't know where we were going to be cash-wise. The really, really great news is that we've done well. So we've moved 584,000 over from operating into reserves, excluding the 185. That brings our reserve, excluding the 185, to $1,060,000. Now, we've already, on the window and door project, we've already invested about $1.2 million of our reserves into the window and door project to reduce the amount of cost and interest that we have on the window and door project. So we still have, we had about $1 million left. If we look at the bank, I want to get these numbers correctly. What we did with the November, so on 10/31, your financial statement will show that we have over $1 million worth of reserves. In the interim time, since this report was issued, we authorized another $300,000 of reserve to go to Livingstone. So that reduces our reserves that are available to be spent on capital projects to $700,000 at the time of this meeting. That means we funded the capital project year to date with a loan from the bank. We've only borrowed $631,000 from the bank. We have a line of credit of $2.7 million. We're not even going to approach that. We're going to probably be around $1 million. That's what we're going to end up borrowing. But so far we borrowed $631,000 from the bank, and we funded that project with approximately $1.2 million with reserves. So of the window and door project, we've already spent about $1.2 million of our capital reserves. We still have $700,000 in excess capital reserves sitting in our account. We'll let the next board decide how they're going to deal with the reserves. What our goal was, when we first started thinking about the window project, we weren't thinking about adding balconies at $1 million, and we weren't thinking about 8% interest rates. In the third quarter of 2022, we were looking at 2.5% interest rates. They moved to 3, they moved to 4, and by the time we were able to secure the loan, we were at 8. So 8 is extremely punitive. And so what we've done is a cash plan that we'll refine coming out of this meeting that says, all right, here's the timing of the money going out, here's the timing of the money coming in from assessments, and here's our reserves. Our idea as a board is to use as much of our reserves up front with the project, to fund it up front so that we reduce our capital and we reduce our interest expense. And then at the back end of the project, we can recover the reserves at the back end of the project from our assessments. So we'll be reserved at the back end of the project. So any risk that we have with reserves at the front end, by lowering it, we recover it at the back end of the project. We will show you at the end of the annual meeting, you'll see the cash plan on the capital projects. We'll have that for you to show you the timing of the finances as we go out. But this letter we're going to write, as we look at this whole process, we didn't have enough money to do all the work that should have been done post-Sally. We're going to classify the windows and doors and a percentage of that, and then we're going to write a letter so that we'll be able to recognize that some of this money that we're spending on this capital project is related to Hurricane Sally. It's a loss assessment. We'll be able to tell you what that percentage is in the next week or so. That means that partial assessment should be covered by your HO6. So I think there's a good chance that a lot of us will be able to get our reimbursed for some of this assessment through our HO6. But it's an ongoing process, but that's something that the board's going to be doing. So that takes us into the big money change was we moved money from operating. We finally released that and put that over into capital so that we can spend it on the project. We had more money than what we had anticipated. We came through this hurricane. We rebuilt this property, maybe not to the way that people wanted to see it, but to the best way we possibly could. And during that process, we were able to conserve and come up with about almost $2 million. and we put 1.2 million of that already to the project, which reduces the amount that we're gonna have. Now, on the back end of this project, we're gonna have reserves. That'll be a different board that'll deal with the reserves that they'll capture at the back end. This board will build that into the cash plan and give it to the next board, and whatever board has it in 26 will capture those reserves. We still have to go through and fund the reserve study, and we have to fund the inside windows that we did not cover during this assessment, and the inside windows in 1, 2, and 3. We have issues with those. They were internal windows, so they wouldn't have been exposed to the damage from the hurricane. The second thing is we have egress problems with those windows being up to code. And so when we do replace those windows, we're going to have to enlarge the framing to allow for an emergency exit on all the one bedrooms for sure. So we have some of those issues, but at the end of this project, the window project, we should have enough reserves, and we should have accumulated enough reserves at 170,000 a year that next project would be fully funded. So we wouldn't have to come back to the association and say, hey, we want to do this project, we need some money. At the end of this window project and balcony project, we should have enough captured reserves back and enough reserves that we've accumulated to pay for the window project. And we're now getting estimates on that as part of the reserve study. So that's part of what we're doing, is looking out beyond this project. What's the next project? The good news is I think we're going to be able to fund the next project by the time we get to the project. And that's all I had on the financial review and the glass in the balcony project, other than we discovered that we had some issues this morning with the installation, and we're on that. And we'll get that corrected. Does anybody have anything else on the glass and window project?
Just to specify, there was one stack of the building 2 that the door was installed where it opens from the corner versus the middle, and we are on that, so that's the only problem. Nothing big, just a technicality.
And the last thing I'll say, I guess, on the financials, as you get to it, we revised October twice already. It's pretty clean, but if you have any questions about it, please email us and let us know if it's a specific question about a certain account, because we've had to go in and take out hurricane-related expenses and put those into different buckets. And we've been cleaning that up as we've gone through the fall. But I think we've got some really good financials as you dig through those. That's it on the balcony project. On the east pool, we've begun the east pool. The only thing I'll say about the east pool is the only way you're going to get warranties is if you have less than 3 coats of plaster. We discovered a couple of days ago, was it just 2 days ago?
It's a blur.
It's a blur. That the
Sure,
east
2
pool,
days ago.
the east pool has too many coats of plaster to replaster. So we have to demo out the plaster on the east pool. It's an additional $6,000. But we're on top of that east pool project, and it's working, and we feel like we ended up with the best vendor solution. We don't always pick the right vendors, you know. We were unhappy with Alabama Pool because of the concrete work. That was a subcontractor that they used. But when we dug into the real pool work, the plastering and that, they were the best solution for us and the best warranty solution for us. And then we used a different contractor to do the cement, the same contractor that came back in and fixed the cement over here on the other pool. Anything else on the east pool?
Well, we kind of anticipated that people would question why we went there. I'm just gonna say it,
Right.
because we agree. So we did tell, because Kyle met with us and we said, okay, come to us. You're the one that knows it, and he knows the product that Alabama Pool Works uses as opposed to some of the other people that gave us bids. And he predicted, and he's seen on other properties, that tiles fall off the walls in about 5 years, and et cetera, et cetera. So as you know, by reading the minutes and you've seen, we did go back to Alabama Pool Works, but we did expect Triton to kind of be on them, if you will, and keep them on schedule. And so far, they are definitely on schedule. And just so everybody knows, the board is getting updates from Triton about that project, which exactly like what they told us about the plaster situation. So we hope we aren't sitting here for 7 months looking at the East Pool in a construction state. I know I'm exaggerating, but we all were frustrated equally. And that's what motivated us to make that decision. So as you question that, or if you question it, you just deserve to know why we came to that conclusion.
That's a good point. And the other thing too is I want to apologize, because we should be doing a better job of providing graphs and having materials out there. But a lot of the stuff that we're doing is last minute, because there's so much work that's going into it leading up to these dates. We had deadlines that we had to meet according to our bylaws, and there's just so much heavy lifting that goes into this, that we haven't had a chance to to catch up. Joel and I were at meetings with our accountants this week already, on Thursday. And
And we have an amazing secretary to make sure we stay in our
Now,
bylaws.
she
and
keeps us
she's
in
great.
line, but there's just so much that gets done. I think you're gonna start to see, now that we fixed the financial side of this, as we get into the January meeting, I think you'll see a more professional presentation. So I apologize for that. It's never good to do, not to do as good as you know you can do, I guess, so.
We do need a motion for
Yep.
that change order.
Do we need
I'd
you wanna make a motion on the
I'd
change
like to
order?
make a motion that we approve the change order for the replastering of the pool in an amount of $6,464.51 to Alabama Pool Works.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have one absent. Motion passes. Okay, we talked about, is there anything else on the East Pool? Okay. We talked about the trash concerns. Do we need to bring it to go through that trash?
I don't think so. I just felt like, as an owner, I had no idea that we get charged per dumpster $162.50. So that, I only brought that up as an awareness to all of us. And we'll all just do our best if we're on site and ask our property managers if your maid or whoever's cleaning, that's how we can help ourselves.
And I think, an important part of this is, this is my own personal opinion. I've been here for over 10 years, and I've been around associations. And associations tend to blow up a company and go to the next, and blow up a company and go to the next, and blow because they think it's gonna be better and they run into the same problems. What we're trying to do is improve processes. So if we work with a vendor, we're trying to work with that vendor, and when we have a problem, we're trying to understand, how did that problem occur, and what can we do differently to make sure that that problem doesn't occur in the future? That's like trash.
Right.
Every summer, we have trash in the parking lot because there's not enough dumpsters, and every winter, we have too many dumpsters that are empty. And it's just like, it sounds elementary, but now who's responsible? What are you gonna do? When are you gonna do it? Give us a calendar. So what we're trying to do with most of our vendors is to work with them to improve processes rather than blow them up. Now, we've gone to Grant Sanders and Taylor. We couldn't be happier. And as an association, you gotta know that we're spending millions of dollars. And now you can go to Grant Sanders and Taylor and you can find out where every nickel is at. They'll retain everything. And those are our financial records. We're not gonna have to rely on somebody that dropped the ball like Coastal and left the previous board in a difficult position. We're not gonna have to worry about that because we'll have all the data that we'll control. But we are working to continually improve these processes. When we get to a point where we may find a vendor that we can't improve, then we'll switch. But it's our attitude is, let's see if we can fix it and make it better as we go along and leave it better than when we found it. And that's part of that process. But we are trying to work on a lot of stuff, but we've just got to get these big rocks moved first, because then we can get to the next. And getting financial integrity by the end of the year was really paramount for us. And now we're there. We had some questions about condo entry and communication and processes between Triton and the owners. And it kind of blends into secure vision installation and concerns in 1, 2, and 3. One of the problems that we have is, people entering. We had a realtor open a condo without knocking this last year and walked in on a family, and it happened to be a police officer who happened to have a gun right at that moment. And we always have issues with people entering, right? Now that's between the realtor and that's the property manager and a lot of other issues. But we also have owners that are concerned when they see their lock or they know that someone's coming in and out. We're trying to work with Triton to try to understand what some processes are, protocols, so that we know when an owner's condo is going to be entered, what are the steps that they're going to have to go through to get that process done, right? Tammy, you want to elaborate on that at all?
Well, just, I don't know, an example that came up, kind of heading off on that. So it's like, well, we never get a complaint about our current pest control people, and I'm not talking about Sandman with the other going in. So then it goes, then you ask another question. Are they actually going in the unit? Are they actually spraying it? So one thing, again, it just boils down to accountability and asking Triton, this is what we need you to present with us. What is your schedule of letting those people in? We know and we're well aware. We've heard, I can't believe that people have walked in on people or only knock once and then go right in. So I guess, I don't know what else to say, is that we appreciate the feedback that's going on, or else we wouldn't know it's going on but we aren't ignoring it.
We're not ignoring it. We're trying to work
And-
through these processes.
Yeah, and we're just asking them to come up with a process that works for their staff, and we're not gonna tell you how to do your job, but this is the problem, how are you gonna fix it? And get us a schedule and a plan for all that. What are you doing?
Right, and as it relates to Secure Vision and the installation of the wiring in 1, 2, and 3, we have to go all the way back to the hurricane, and we have to go back to this building. So when this building was destroyed and then condemned, we had to rip everything out of it. First, it was destroyed, and we thought we could rebuild it, and then into the rebuilding process, the county came in and condemned it, which meant we had to rip everything out. We had no cable, and we didn't have any money. We were already upside down on this building. We didn't have enough money to put the building back. And so we didn't have money to rewire it. So we went to Harbor, who had the contract with us at the time, and we said, we need to work with you to rewire this building. And they said, we don't have the labor, we don't have the capital. Now, subsequently, they were acquired by C Spire, but at the time it was Harbor. And they said, we can't help you, we can't do anything. We had, at that time, we had another 3-year commitment under the contract with them. So we had a contract where we were paying for this service. We had a building that we couldn't, there was no wiring in it for cable or internet, and we didn't have any money to put the wiring in, and it would have been about $1 million to rewire everything through here. So we cut a deal with Secure Vision, and Secure Vision said, if you'll give us a contract to handle the service when Harbor's expires, and put a little bit on the top each month for us for delivering some services, which is like $19 a month per owner, we will go ahead and make the capital investment and come in and rewire this building, which they did, and did a pretty good job, I think, of rewiring this building. And then we'll begin and we'll rewire 1, 2, and 3 before Harbor leaves. Harbor is we're gonna be done with Harbor at the end of this year. And so C Spire is in there trying to get it done as quickly as they can. So they're up against a hard cutoff, which is to make sure that everybody still has internet service by the end of the year. We're working with them, and we just don't have all the answers right now, how quickly this process is gonna go. They're trying to do it at the same time we're doing the balcony project, but they're moving ahead of the balcony project. So it is an inconvenience, and to Tammy's point, we're trying to get that protocol in place. Here's how you do it. How can we let people know that we're gonna be working in certain parts of the building? Well, we gotta get signage in the elevators. We have to have signage as people walk through. We may not be able to control it as much as we can control the balcony thing, because we don't have anybody managing the C Spire project except C Spire. And so it's a little difficult, but we're trying to work through that. And I think we can make some real progress on that this next week, because we made them aware. Any other comments on the C
The
Spire?
other thing to note on this Secure Vision thing, if you look in the information that was sent out, this is something they're trying to temporarily do right now to get that in there so they can actually go live on January 1st. So some of the plug-in concerns, if you think about buildings 1 through 3 are wood construction, they were built together as basically built off-site and then brought in here as a big unit. So it's built different. In building 4, we had all the walls open, so it's easier to run wires where you need to. So in buildings 1, 2, and 3, they're having to, so you don't have you remember the chain lights because you didn't want to run through the wall. You had the chain lights. So they're having to do some different strategies right now that are not the end product. So just know that some of the stuff right now is going to get resolved. It's just, it's a labor pain until we get to the final product. So it's
Right.
coming, but.
And that was one of the ways that we were able to conserve cash too, back in the day, was getting the Secure Vision contract. So now that Harbor's out, we'll be able to push into Secure, and it'll just be one bill, and it doesn't go up, which is another good thing. And then we're gonna have to look, or future boards are gonna have to look at what are the options for streaming down the road, and how do we wanna look at, instead of buying the content, do we wanna go to streaming? But that's something that the future board can take a look at. But now we're in a position to do that going forward. Anything else on Secure Vision?
The only thing I saw, that we had an email from Triton the other day, there are some owners that are very unhappy with the way the cabling is run right now. Like Stephanie said, it's a temporary thing. If there's an issue, call Secure Vision. There's people on site 6 days a week. They say they will come and fix it to get it up out of the walkways and things like that.
And having owned a 2-bedroom unit here, I can tell you that what they have to do is the main cable comes up through the master. They got to move it up into the vent, because to Stephanie's point, the way that we put these units together, they were built off-site, stacked in here like blocks. You can't run cable through. It's not an easy way to run. There's no way to run cable through directly from that through the bathroom, over the bathroom into the bedroom. You've got to go through the vent system, and it's a little bit complicated. Yeah, so they're working on that, and that will improve. But like Joel said, the goal was to get it done by 12/31, because at that point we convert over, and we do have about a 90-day window where we're working with Harbor in the first 90 days so we can make this a smooth transition. But we'll be completely done with them by the end of March.
Bill, if it's okay with you, I can send out the Secure Vision contact information
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
the owners again.
Yeah, and I'll send you. Do one of you have the narrative that I wrote? Do you want to have the narrative? Could you forward that to Lynn to get out?
And also, it's in the newsletter, the contact information for Secure Vision.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Everybody asked me and I screenshot my own information because I gotta refer back to it too, so. But yeah,
Okay, we'll take some questions. Anybody have any questions on everything now that we discussed? Yeah.
Sand spurs,
Yeah. Sand spurs,
that's a big problem.
I think it goes back to,
Landscaping, and so none of us are happy with the current situation. And I've met with one of the landscaping guys, and that would all get addressed. And I think unofficially, we've narrowed it down and we've allowed in the budget to pick a new landscaping person. So that all will be expected to be resolved when we replace and hire a company that will be focused on the right things.
Do you know when that's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Well, we haven't hired them yet, but
it's a process.
we haven't made that decision.
We haven't made
yet.
that decision. So if they're watching the meeting today, hopefully we'll still have landscaping.
Well,
But we're
I'm
unhappy.
sorry,
We're
yeah.
unhappy. Yeah, we're unhappy. We're unhappy with it. Sand spurs, I used to live out here. I lived a little further down the island now. And I don't have that problem down there, but we spray everything. And the problem, sand spurs are horrible out here. My dogs would get in them, over at Kiva. They're a mess over at Kiva. But I think if we get aggressive, and we weren't putting any pre-emergent down. We weren't putting any herbicides down. So I think if we get really aggressive with it with the new landscaper, I'm not gonna say there won't be sand spurs that are occurred, but we ought to be able
They
to
should
not.
be on top of them. And
They
I'm not
should be.
representing the board. I'm just gonna say, because I'm just as frustrated, and I was just in a feed with the beautification committee. And it's known, you guys, in October, the trees were trimmed, and if anybody's currently listening to it that's nervous about our decisions that we're gonna make, I would love, and I think every owner would love, to have somebody explain to us why we have piles and piles of what got trimmed laying around on the ground. So if somebody out there says, well, what's gonna happen to me? It's like, you didn't do your job. That's me speaking as an owner, not this board. I'm not representing the association in any way. I'm saying it as a person who pays $1,300 a month, like all of you do, and I'm personally frustrated as an owner. So I'm sorry, Bill, but
Yeah,
that's wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong. I can't, as an owner, be okay with it, and I can't sit here as one of your board members and say, that's acceptable. So, yes, the sandburs are unacceptable, absolutely.
yeah. We
And that
can't-
would be
yeah.
told to the new person, if there's going to be a new person, this is unacceptable.
Someone
So-
sent me an email was that you that sent me an email?
No.
Someone sent me an
Well,
email about
uh,
sand spurs, and I
I
said,
can guess who it is, but it's,
I said, we'll get on it.
I know who it is.
just
No,
know
there
that
was
we're,
more than one.
yeah, and it's not that I wanna be
You
ugly to
can't even
anybody,
walk
but
out there.
I know.
Are they gonna mow again? So that at least it won't be, it gets in your pants all the way to your knees.
we
Yeah.
understand all the problems, and that's how we're gonna try to address it. And I don't wanna try to get sideways with any current employees, but if you're not doing your job, I don't care who you are in this association or outside. Everybody has to do their job. And the owners want us to hold people accountable, and that's what we're trying to say. We are trying to do that.
without.
Yeah.
You have to hold them accountable, and you have to be professional about it, which we
Right.
are, but we can't be willing to, we can't just ignore it because we want to avoid confrontation. And if we can't improve the process, we have to change it, and that's kind of where we're at. But we see all this, we're aware of all this, and we are doing things behind the scenes, getting bids and
Right.
working to try to figure out what better solutions are there.
And I don't need to sound confrontational. But
No,
I just
you're
share-
not, no.
I just we all share everybody's frustrations equally. And every one of you are valid, whether you've emailed us,
You know, I
talked to us.
think unless
questioned-
you're on the first floor of 4, you don't really know how bad it is.
Oh, yeah, you do, because we
We
still walk on the ground.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
we have a unit on another
We can't
floor,
even step off our
we
patio.
we understand.
But but know that we're getting on it.
Yes.
And the time to get on it will be January, February, and get the pre-emergent down and just kill that stuff.
Well, I have a picture of guys spraying that, and it didn't do any, there were
Well-
2 of them that came by and they sprayed.
Again, accountability, making sure the process is working. If it's not working, why is it not working, then do better.
Yeah, we have to tell them
We
what
have to keep moving.
There's
We
nothing
have
we
to-
can, we can't undo the past.
we gotta tell them what the
Move forward.
outcome's gotta look like. And you gotta get from where you're at to what the outcome is and what our expectation is. And we'll help you get there, but you gotta get there at a certain point. Because we just don't wanna do this in a halfway manner.
Bill, I would like to add for all of the owners that don't see the back end of things, this board has put in an exhaustive effort with the landscaping. That's just one of them. I mean, they have been in a reactive position, the landscapers, instead of proactive. And that is why you have that problem right now. So anything that's going on, it's hard to control when it gets to that point. And the board has been aware of it and working on the situation to try to correct it, to be fair. But they do understand that they've gotten to a point and they are working on it for you guys. So I know you don't see the back end of it, but they have spent countless hours on that particular subject and more. So y'all just try to remember that they're doing a great job trying to work with the existing vendors and also improve those processes with possibly new ones. So it is appreciated on my end too. So
Okay, yeah, and then there is a balance where you don't wanna
yeah,
attack, but you also have an expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's just so many hours that we have available to do this while we're trying to do other things.
They're volunteers.
Lynn,
There's
I'm-
that.
And again, it goes back to, everything's happening in real time. We can't just stop everything and say, oh, we had a mistake here, we've got to go back and fix it, like on the accounting side. The numbers are still coming in, and the numbers are still coming in wrong while you're trying to fix the numbers that were wrong previously. So it was not a fun year to go through.
it's like you're on a roller coaster or standing beside it and having to jump on
But,
without it slowing down.
but I
Getting run
can,
over by it. Or,
Right.
I can tell you, I'm looking forward to next year because I think we've got everything pretty much in place. We're still gonna have problems that we have to solve, but we're not gonna have the big things hanging over our head that kept us up at night. And we won't be working on Plan Bs, we'll just be able to focus on Plan A. Any other questions so far? Yeah, up front.
I got a few.
Okay.
So one, appreciate all the work effort you guys go through, and I know we don't see it. If we're in your seat, we'd be like, guys, come on. You know, I'm not sleeping at night, right? So appreciate it very much.
Speak up a little louder.
This is as loud as it gets. All right, and Stephanie, love the newsletter, so very informative, yeah, absolutely love it. Okay, revenue stream, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think we ought to consider having some sort of commissary type of, because I think that'd bring in a ton of money. If you're beach towels, beach chairs, toilet paper, that's just gonna be a cash cow, right here. So anyway, I throw up that idea. My sliding door on my one bedroom, I purchased that, 2016, 17. It's a beautiful door. How do I keep that so I can sell it, or does the company that's replacing want to buy it from me?
Okay, I can't guarantee you here's what you need to do. You need to, let us, what unit are you in?
That one is 3304.
3304. You need to send an email. Go ahead and send it to me. Okay, and mention that. Now, I'm gonna forward that email to our project manager. I can't guarantee it, but what we'll try to do is when they remove the door, to leave it. Now, you're gonna have to, at that time, you'll have to arrange for someone to come and get it, right?
Sure.
And we can't guarantee that it'll still work when they take it out. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
There's no guarantee, we can't take any liability in that regard, but we will try to accommodate that request. That's not the first time we've had that request. So
Okay.
we will try to accommodate that, but I can't guarantee anything about the door. And you'll have to remove it yourself. I mean, you have to take it physically
move it
out
from
of the
property. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay.
So maintenance in the common areas, this is, it feels as though that maybe Triton isn't walking around and seeing some of this obvious stuff. I mean, for weeks, I'll see, let's just, minor examples, right? So an exit sign, exit sign up on the wall has its cover off. and it's laying there on the ground. And it'll sit there for a week, you know, and I watch it, right? And just, are they walking around? If you look at the elevator in building number 3, one of the elevator in there, the flooring just continually gets worse and worse and worse and worse. It's like, aren't they walking, looking, going, hey, we need to put a new piece of linoleum down?
That's exactly kind of what I'm hitting on. I didn't hit on that, but these
That-
guys will attest. Read
That-
some
oh, yeah,
emails this
That
last week.
particular problem, I had a conversation with Triton about that, and they're trying to go with a different floor because our elevator in 4 is doing the same thing, and what they have there is not working, so they're looking for a different solution. My thoughts are a single piece of linoleum in there or whatever, instead of having the strips, like they do in hospitals and things like that. But that was brought up last week, and they are working on that, but thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the problem, I was just gonna say, here's the problem I have with that as an owner and as a board member, is that while Triton, you know, their job isn't to walk every floor every day. It is for housekeeping almost, and it is for security. They're supposed to be walking the floors. So any vendor that, you know, that walks by and sees that, yeah, when I walk by and see it, I send a text, right? And I say, hey, we got a problem here, let's get over here and fix this. But that's getting housekeeping and security, and everybody that's a vendor that walks our floors, when they see a problem, maybe it doesn't relate to security, but there's a sign down, they should be reporting it. And that's part of trying to improve this whole process, is that we're all working on the same team here. Just because your housekeeping doesn't mean you shouldn't alert us if something is wrong, or your security, you shouldn't let us know. But that's exactly to the heart of what we're trying to accomplish, is to try to get people, it used to just, I have to tell you, I got into an elevator one time with the property manager here, a woman who was property manager, and we walked into an elevator and there was trash in the elevator. We got in the elevator, we went up, and I was waiting for her to pick up the trash. We walked out of the elevator and I said, why didn't you pick up that trash? And she goes, well, that's not my job. And she was correct, it wasn't her job, she was gone. You know, I mean, we ended up getting rid of them, but I went back and picked up the trash. And that's just that mentality that culture that we've got to get involved here. You got to take pride here, you know.
But I also think that, like, you've asked Triton earlier, just for transparency, because that's where I'm at right now.
Right.
Because I don't mind the emails, but everybody deserves some answers. Bill did ask Triton, and that's the other thing, but as far, what is their plan? I do think that you're expecting, what I'm hearing you say, they don't have to go around all the time, but if they're responsible for all the vendors, they should be maybe once a month, twice a month, whatever they're gonna do, and look at everything and make sure these people are doing their job.
Right.
But we also have to have quality people that are doing their job, because we also don't want to pay Triton to babysit. When I spoke to the landscaping people, and I mentioned something about we have on-site managers, and he said, oh, I know what I expect out of my staff. Your people will not have to be paid to manage my people. Because if they are doing their job,
Yeah.
I'm gonna handle it. And
Yeah, I hear
love
that.
That's how
I
it
know,
should be.
that's how it should be, but I hear that from every vendor that tries to get our business too.
Yeah,
So we have to make sure that even the ones that say they're gonna do the job
Actually follow through.
actually
Exactly.
follow through.
and that would be Triton's responsibility to
Right.
come up and show any board, the next board, whatever. This is our schedule of how we're gonna do things. We're gonna do a round, whatever it's gonna be.
Right.
What is the process?
And we're just getting into this now, where we're assigning all this responsibility and accountability and trying to work through it with these guys. They're not all happy with us, you know?
Well,
But you had some other.
I did.
Okay.
Okay, so the installation for Secure Vision, you know, I asked Karen, what is that gonna look like in the 1-bedroom, 2-bedrooms, I have one of each. And she kind of described what it might look like in the 2-bedroom, didn't know what it looked like in the 1-bedroom. Point is that it'd be nice to know what the end result is going to be. They talked about access panel. I'm like, why can't this thing just sit in the closet where the furnace area is? Because it's already, electrical's right there. My wire comes up there, that's where it could be. So just some insights as to what the end.
And something we've asked for is because Building 1 owners, 39 of them have had this done. We would love for them to share that, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
let us know. They have 1 and 2 bedrooms. We'd love to know what the end product looks like. but we're not getting that information. So without one of us saying knock, knock and saying, hey, we're coming in, you know, and that'd be a secure vision question. It goes back to
And,
that.
you know, and we really haven't got complaints out of one.
Well,
We just really haven't heard much of anything. It's like
But,
crickets.
but we understand that all you guys want to know what to expect.
Right.
exactly.
So
That's it.
it's just like if you're in building one and you're just,
Yeah,
please
that's
help
been asked a
out.
couple of times.
Where's it gonna be and what do I need to move so y'all can prepare and not have my stuff damaged as well?
Yeah, or put it in a ridiculous spot.
Yep.
And this is the last one, so, some of the owners have, and myself, have questioned the decision to have the window and door project kind of go continual and into the summer months, where, you know, owners are not going to make money, you know,
Right.
and be in an upside down position. Maybe this is asked and answered, and you can direct me to the answer, but, and you don't have to answer it right now if you're not prepared to, which is fine. But what was the driving decision to impact owners in that way and their business?
Oh, okay, well, there is an answer
There is
for
an
that.
answer.
There's an answer for that. Initially, we didn't intend to do balconies, so we intended to do windows, and we didn't, and windows would not have gone into the summer. There were delays in getting it started because there were delays in acquiring the funds and getting committed, but we still would have been able to do the window project without interfering with the summer. The problem that we ran into when we started to open up in order to install the windows properly for insurance purposes, you have to flash it correctly, right? And for warranty purposes, and that means opening up the balconies. So as we started to open up the balconies, we discovered dry rot and, it was horrible, right? And we were concerned about structural integrity. We knew that we were gonna have to replace balconies. We were thinking 4 or 5 years from now. Hopefully, we could get to that. Once we opened up the balconies and we saw we had the problem, then the question became, well, do we open up the balconies, flash and fix and repair as we go? And then we're still gonna have 40-year-old balconies and we still got structural issues that we're concerned about, safety issues. Or do we simply tear it all down and put a new balcony stack in? And the cost was about the same. And so it was apparent that the solution was to go ahead and do the balconies now at the same time we're doing the window project. Once we decided to do the balconies, then it requires more time. And so then the time frame went all the way out and through the summer. And we didn't have any choice but to go ahead and make that decision because it would have been too cost prohibitive to pull teams off and stop and then come back just for the run of the summer. I'm one of those people that's losing money and, so they started on one and, I share 1 and 2 and I own 1 and 3. So that's where we're at.
You also wanna think, sorry, go ahead.
Well, we asked that exact question and we all wish we didn't have to affect people's seasonal thing, but it's just a reality. So if you send away all those workers and move all the equipment off, we're all gonna pay a lot more money again to do that, as well as the insurance part. They can't say, well, part of your buildings are this and part of your buildings are that. It's just gotta start and go forward. And they're staying on schedule and,
It's not pleasant for anybody. We didn't want to do it.
it's just the most efficient way to do it. It's inconvenient, but hopefully it's only gonna be 14 days
Oh, and
for
some,
people to be down, which is pretty good because
714, sorry.
I'm
Speaking from
sorry.
personal experience, I was down 714 days.
And Stephanie and I lost 3 Julys because
Yeah.
we're in Billy 4 West and we lost our elevator when we had our first final thing. And
Yeah.
we wished, so we felt strong about that to not happen.
To not
because
have
of
you
what we
shut down
did.
multiple times.
we try not to do it.
And I get that, and I appreciate the
Because
the
that's just-
response to it. And, the owners that are impacted most heavily are supplementing the association. And, as you described, you send them off-site, it's gonna cost the association more money. That more money is now the burden of those in building number 3.
But it's gonna be
lost
hopefully
revenue.
just the 14 days, that's awesome.
And we've been able to stay pretty much on schedule.
And you're getting new windows, new doors, a new balcony.
It's real important, I didn't mean to interrupt,
Yeah.
that we stay on schedule.
That's the biggest issue.
And
Because
that's what
once
we've
we go
been-
into compromise, now if we were to slide, now you lose 4 weeks or 5 weeks. That's completely
Well,
unacceptable.
And
So
for our businesses,
Yeah.
we lose credibility.
Right.
You know, we have to refund and, you know, we're gonna be looking for compensation on something like that. you
And
know,
we feel that
Because
pain.
that's impacting our business, so critically important that we stay.
It is
completely
very
on
critical.
schedule.
We,
Right.
we,
And that's why we have Triton Project Management, staying on top of this, and we're staying on top of it as well, because it is important.
Boy, but it's running a lot more smoothly than any of the
It is.
and
construction
so,
projects.
and now look at our weather.
All right, there you just did it.
And
Yeah, I
so
probably
for
did it. I probably did it. Yeah, Auburn's gonna win, look. You know?
So the whole accountability thing, we talked about what's happening right now. Okay, obviously they're not out there working today, but they said if they lose weather days, they promised us that they would work through weekends to make up time and longer days. So everything physically possible to keep that at minimal impact has been done, because we would never wish that on anybody else, what some of us have already experienced, and we feel that pain. And we wanted to make sure, our questions were based on our own experiences, but we don't want to see that happen to our neighbors. Genuinely, but it's just the best it can be. It's gonna be what it is, and we'll get through it. And right now we are on schedule, and we're, halfway through two? So
Yeah, I
partway
mean,
into two?
I could have said, and nobody would have known, I could have said, let's start this on building 3, because I have one in building 3. And they even said, what building should we start at? And I said, which is best for the association? And they said it's best to start in building 1. So they started in building 1 where I don't have an investment. And because I knew I'd get, you know, you can't be in a position that we're in on the board and do anything that looks questionable. You just can't do that. It compromises your integrity, and then you're done. So we started in 1, let the chips fall where they may. We weren't involved in any of that process. That was selected by the project managers.
And yeah, before we started, we met right here in this room with all of them, Livingstone and Triton.
Right.
And we had very specific questions for them, because we knew, we didn't want it to happen to anybody. We didn't,
Yeah.
but
But
that's just the reality. And they said, well, if you do that, and then we started getting requests, I think all of us did, I know I did. Well, these are the weeks I have open. Can you have them go do my unit on these weeks? Well, no. Even if they could try to do that, then there's a cost to move the lifts from here to then it's more man hours and equipment hours. This is the most efficient, best solution to get to the end product.
And one last thing, hurricane season is June to November.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our hurricanes happen in September. So to try to hurry up and get as many windows and stuff done before we have another H word,
Which is gonna be several
Which
years from now.
reduces your
decades.
further impact. So what if we didn't get to your unit because we waited to the next year and that H decides to visit us again, and you have further water intrusion? Like we're talking about with the insurance, we know these problems exist. If we delayed in fixing them, then it might cause bigger ticket later. We don't want to cause a
Yeah.
bigger ticket.
And then we put your unit on hold so you could rent for 2 weeks, but now you lost everything and your neighbor didn't because they went ahead and got their windows. It's ugly, it's painful.
Were there any other questions before we move to new business? Deb?
I had a couple heard today. You mentioned possibly putting, not questions so much as comments, putting vending machines in the laundry rooms. I hope that's not at the expense of the folding tables. If I did not bring that up, my wife would be peeved at me.
No, we
But those
would,
do serve a
On the wall.
purpose. in there.
we're looking at stuff that would be hanging on the wall and it would dispense
Soap
soap and
and stuff like that.
laundry detergent and that sort of thing, and then we get some revenue from that. So we want to do that for the convenience of obviously our guests and owners, but also let's make some money.
And something else he mentioned was like other vending, right? So other than just laundry soaps, there's Band-Aids, there's Neosporin, and there's other types of vending that would be great in here that, oh, I forgot this. I don't want to run the store. I'll go downstairs and swipe my card and I'll get me a thing of shampoo. I mean, there's opportunities for revenue.
And the other thing, and this is something, we'll let y'all to do this, and that's fine. Y'all have information that we don't have and so forth. But you're talking about the interior windows. If that's not a need as far as structural integrity or something, before this process gets started, consider maybe just taking a step back at the big picture, looking what all we've done the last 3 years and say, let's get our reserves built up more before we start that. I would like to have it done, but when you're talking about resizing the windows and everything, that's gonna cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And if it's not a need, just a suggestion that we might could wait on that.
That's exactly why we did wait.
That's why we waited.
You know, if we get you said we would have enough money put aside to handle that. that doesn't mean it should be done yet just because we can.
Well,
I
and
agree, I agree.
We also have allocation for the extra reserve too, like we're talking about. We're trying to hold a certain amount back because we have to. So you never want to put yourself in the financial risk of where you're using all your reserves just to do something that's
Yeah.
maybe not necessarily, if we're talking, same.
Been here for right at
Yeah,
20 years, and
exactly.
seen reserves way up here, and
Uh-huh.
reserves way down there, and we're
Yeah.
still at the relative bottom of where they have been, and they need to get built up before we start projects like that.
Yeah, I'm
If we can.
I'm the real conservative guy here, with cash. I mean, that was in business, you can show an income, you can show a profit and you go out of business if you can't cash flow. Cash flow is everything. Cash flow is king. So you got to make sure, you can conserve cash and make sure you can pay your bills. That's the key thing. So that's the mentality we had the first day in January of 21 when we came on, was how can we conserve as much cash as possible? Because I remember the days here where we had over $1 million in reserve. And, every time you wash out the boardwalk, we'd have to replace it, $250,000, So, I mean, it's not cheap. I would love to get us in a position where we have those reserves built up and we also have money for insurance ahead of time so that we're not financing insurance, which is something I can talk about in new business. But we're from where we were when we were decimated 3 years ago to where we are today, where we were able to squirrel away almost just exactly $2 million of cash. We've already put 1.2 million towards this project. That's why we haven't put any more. We released the last 300,000. So we actually have 7, 8, almost 900,000 in total reserves right now, even after the $300,000 payment that we made this week.
But, it's just a thought, possibly, take a deep breath and a step back before we start a new project.
Well, we're not committed. We're not committed
Okay.
to
We're
it.
not committed.
The next board will.
But when you do when you do take money for a reserve, right, you're supposed to have a reason for taking that money. And we have a 25-year reserve study. Did we ever find that yet? Well, I gotta get it, we'll get it emailed. It's done. We lost it in the transition somewhere. But we have that study and we would point towards windows. Now, whether the board does that or not, I'll be an owner, but I won't be on the board.
Just a thought, just throwing that out.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. Any other questions? But
I just was printing off the proposed budget, and there are two documents that have the same title about the proposed budget that were yesterday, and they're exactly the same title, and I just wondered if we need to print off both of them, because mine, usually the proposed budget shows like how much was spent in 2023 and how much is proposed. And mine just shows the 2024 that I printed off. And you have a thing that
the
shows.
2023 budget is online.
It's online.
It's online, so you
It's
can
in
look
our
at it.
file.
Oh, okay, but usually when we get the proposed budget, it has them side by side, right?
She's saying compared to 2023.
So that you can see. But the one, and I don't know why there's two from yesterday
some of
that were.
this- Some of this, Grant Sanders and Taylor, they do work for a lot of associations. So like when we have the change to some of the different accounting procedures, you're gonna see some of the forms, like our statements look different from Grant Sanders and Taylor than they did on Outfolio, because it's a more professional firm that does that. So like, this is how they present, so you're looking at that current budget. And that, they don't do the comparison of 3 to
The year
2.
before.
And-
Because you're looking at what,
I
this
just
is
didn't know
something we
why
have
there
to
were
approve.
two yesterday that were posted with
It's
the
nice to
same.
compare 22.
Well, you know what, you can
It
print
is.
it out and
Okay, do it.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And that's how we built the budget, it's comparative.
Right.
And then, so you look at what was the 23 budget? What actually happened in 23? And what do you want to do in 24? What actually happened in 23 is hard to look at because there's hurricane stuff embedded in all those accounts because, those were extraordinary expenses. So we go repair the hot tub that Claremont didn't do and it's $50,000 or whatever. And now that hits a supply line. So we've had to go through and go through every single variance every time we were over. We had to figure out why we were over and dig through those numbers. So you can get the 23 comparison. The other issue that Stephanie was talking about is if you put them side by side, it's not the same budget. Because this general ledger, this chart of accounts is different than the 23 chart of accounts. So there would be some that would be the same, like fire pump repairs and maintenance. That's in there, meeting expense, legal services, postage, professional fees, some of that would be there. But there are other things that have changed, so it's not as easy to look at.
So why did they post two yesterday with the same title?
I don't know who posted what yesterday,
Whatever was emailed.
Yep, let me look, see what you're talking about.
because you just did a PDF,
In
right?
the-
Right.
There
It
was
was
two different
posted
things. There
on
was an
Folio.
October financial statement, and then there was a proposed budget.
But there are two that say it's
I'm looking right now.
2024 proposed budget, and I didn't
Two
know
of them.
if you should print both of them out, or if one was,
It may have got loaded
if the
twice.
newer one was a correction of
Is it in the
the
same document?
I
Is that what you're
don't
saying?
But,
Oh, it probably
another
just, it double posted? Is
It
that what
double
you're saying?
posted the share in your email.
Oh,
If
okay.
you look on Outfolio right now, it says Gulf Shores Plantation COA 10/31/23 financial statements. And then it also says Gulf Shores Plantation COA 2024 proposed budget. Those are two separate documents, like you had.
Oh, they don't have the same title?
No, ma'am. I'm looking right now live in
Okay, I
Outfolio.
thought that I saw two with the
No,
same title.
Now, in your email, it might have showed.
No, it was on the site where you download. I thought I saw two with the same title, where you hit download.
Let me look on my app.
All right. Okay, so you can go back and look. but
And I
you-
just didn't know if we needed to print them both, or if it was
You
just.
could just open it up and if it's the same
Well, I
information.
know, but I was in a hurry, because I was
It's all
coming here, and then I was just,
No, it's
I
two
was
separate
wondering if
sheets.
I had the
Two
wrong
separate
thing.
things.
Yeah, right.
COA proposed budget and financial statement.
Yep.
They're two separate things in the app. I'm looking on my
Duly
app.
noted.
There's
Yeah,
the
it
second
was
one.
about 3 more lines down.
There's a-
Are you in the
double
shared
The
document?
second and the
In the
sixth.
shared documents where you hit
They
download.
may have just loaded
I
up
wanna
twice,
encourage
populated
y'all
With
to-
the
twice.
same name.
This is a great Appfolio experience right here. So if you look in your, anywhere, shared documents, it's gonna have all these cool folders where things are organized. If you look under financials, you're gonna see that whatever. Sometimes if you looked in the shared with you recently, it's gonna be a smorgasbord of what in the what is all this, okay? So I'm gonna encourage you to
Oh,
actually
that's
look in
what I
the
was
folder.
looking at, the
If you're-
recently,
Yes.
yeah.
So like right now it says, well, I don't know, mine still says GSB inspection report 10, which is the 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
It says COA proposed budget and it says financial statement. So, ow. There's another one down there further on that says 12/1. So I guess it got shared twice.
Okay, all
That's-
right, I was just
it's
wondering
the
if
same
one was,
document.
I
It's the
just,
same document.
anyway.
Yeah.
But the other question I had was about this, loss assessment. When I had the Sally insurance, I was before Sally.
Right.
I was insured 5,000, but we only did 3,000 of loss. We were only used 3,000 of loss assessment, so I had 2,000 extra. Now you're talking about going back and saying, but some of this was Sally. I don't have that same insurance company because they raised my insurance to 7,000 a year, and I said, that's ridiculous, and I got a new one. So if you now go back and say, this was actually loss assessment attributable to Sally, would you go back to the insurance you had in 2020? Or would you use the insurance you have in 2024? I don't get it.
I would think you would use your current insurance person if you
use your current.
if you took out
Because the assessment occurred
insurance.
during this time, even though it was for, I'm not an insurance person, so
I
I'm
don't
not gonna be able to
understand
answer
how,
this.
so we're gonna claim that it was caused by Sally, but we're gonna ask the current insurance policy to pay it.
We're going to declare that a portion of that whole assessment was related to the hurricane that we didn't have the funds to fix. It doesn't change the fact that we're making the assessment, you gotta pay it, but some people should be able to submit that to their insurance and get paid for that. I can't tell
From
you,
the Sally insurance in 2020
No, ma'am.
or from
Don't
this
go worry
year's?
about going back there.
No, don't
just
go
go to
back.
your current insurer
It's all over with.
and see if you can, and
Just-
get it for that.
And you can get it for a hurricane that
We don't
occurred
know what
before
you
you
can-
had
I
it.
don't know what
You
you
have
can
to talk
get.
to your-
I
your
suspect,
agent.
we suspect strongly that there'll be a lot of people that get reimbursed.
We're trying to come up with ways to help owners if we can.
Yeah, I'm
to pay
just
this
trying to
assessment.
understand
That's
when
all.
this was, I know I didn't get to count that 2,000 back because we only had 3,000 loss assessment at Sally time.
At that time, you're right.
I wish we'd had like 5,000 or
No,
something
no,
and
you
gotten
don't.
more done, you know, even if we had to pay out at that time, but anyway.
We're just trying to have another way of helping people pay
I
this
just don't know
assessment.
how that works.
We
when
don't
the-
know, you'll have to ask your insurance.
When
agent.
when the
No, actually-
hurricane happened 4 years ago, how you can claim it.
We don't know either,
Yeah.
we're just trying.
Yeah.
We're
okay.
just recognizing what it is and
Uh-huh.
we can't, it's just like,
Provide them the document,
Yeah.
and don't go
Yes.
into a bunch of explanation.
And see what they say.
Ask your current
Okay, well, I was
insurance
just puzzled by that.
Right. no problem. And I'll just say that after that collapse in Miami of that condo complex, the scrutiny that goes on HOA boards is extraordinary. And so, we really need to become compliant, and we are, and that's a big thing. It's just like putting the assessments on the accounts. It's not our decision. We have to follow the laws and the rules and the IRS things. We just can't, before, there's such a temptation of like, and we did it, you know, and boards have done it before that. Well, we've got money, let's take this money and spend it over here. And you just can't do that. If you're gonna move money from one thing or use it for something else that you didn't tell the association in advance you were going to, you gotta document it and you gotta have a paper trail and you gotta formally do it. So we're just trying to become compliant. It's just like we don't participate in the Facebook, you know, because that's a private Facebook thing. And if we as officers and board members participate in that, and there's a statement that's made that creates a liability for the association, and we don't correct it or we miss it or we don't act on it, it creates liability for the board. So that's why we're not on Facebook and we don't have a e-neighbors thing, because the liability that trails that is so great. It's beyond what you can imagine. And once we inform the board that there's liability, then we don't have the D&O coverage with insurance. If we knowingly do something that exposes us to liability, we're not going to be reimbursed. So we have to be very careful about how we do things. We're just trying to do things the right way, is all. So
Trying to help.
we're trying to help in every way we can. Was there another, Maurice?
I know we want to get the windows done before renew the insurance policy.
Right.
And I'm sure, you know, we want all of our exterior windows replaced. I was just noticing, and maybe it doesn't really matter, you know, at the front of building 1, 2, and 3, there are some exterior windows that are on the stairwell, not inside the wall, you know, inside the hallway. And I didn't know if that would matter or not, because if those are exterior windows,
Well, we didn't exclude them necessarily. You know, we took the ones that we couldn't do the egress on and we had to exclude those.
these are just like the side windows on the
Yeah.
side of the building.
The
Anyway,
side of the buildings are getting done, but in the one bedroom units of the third stack of building 1,
right,
the 1 and the 7 stack of building 2, and the 1 and 7 stack of building 3,
that's right.
their egress window in that one bedroom does face that way. But like to restructure that to
We would
code,
have to do.
you'd have to put a bigger egress thing, and that's what we're talking about.
Okay,
That's the next step is, you know, maybe not all the windows, but we got to get those one bedrooms if you're going to redo any extra to do that.
okay.
But
I was just
It
thinking
all
direct-
trickles. It's like the onion effect. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying? You
I
got to
understand.
start somewhere and you got to stop it before we.
But boy, the good news is, Maurice, when we opened up the west side of 1, was it the west side of 1 or the
Yes.
east side? The west side.
The west side.
The west side. The west side's always worse. We opened up the west side of 1 in the front, it was dry rot. And they called me out and I had to go and look at it and we had to come up with a solution to take it all out to the next group of studs and then go down and reframe it. That was $20,000 on the first stack practically. And, you know, we haven't had that problem since. And they said it may just be isolated to this one area. The front of building 1 has always been a problem. The balconies in 2301 is scary. Maybe it's not scary now, they may have
It's not
replaced
now.
it, but I mean, the drop was probably, 8 inches. And you'd almost fall off that balcony. So, we're trying to get as much done as we can because we have the same conflict. We always have the same conflict. Do we hold off on those windows and try to build our reserve, or do we go ahead and correct bad windows because we've got some money? That's the problem that the board always has. But to go back to something that Marcia brought up, if you do go down the budget and you look at all the big numbers, because I want to be clear, you look at when we manage finance, we look at variances, right? And we look at the big numbers because the small numbers, if you're off a small percentage or a small dollar amount, it's not material. But you look for the big stuff first, and those are the ones you dig into. And as we go down and we look at, cable and internet expense, 210, it's still 210. Facilities is still 190, which was under building and repairs and maintenance. You look at security, the security numbers are exactly the same from 23. They didn't change. We have no reason to think that they would change. That's a big number. And then you look at water and sewer, that's down a little bit from I think 150 to 110. And the transfer to reserves is from 340 down to 170. And all the rest of them are pretty small and they didn't really change much. 1,000 here, 1,000 here, that kind of thing.
It would be helpful if we got copies of those when we're at the meeting.
Yeah, no,
But
but that's,
it came out last night, yesterday, and I don't have a printer in my copy.
oh, that's what I said when I apologized. We've been
I know
literally,
you were under the gun for December 1st. I
yeah,
remember.
we met
I
Thursday,
I-
we all met Friday,
I understand.
and,
And I was the one kind of pushing the button. You wanted to
Well, we
meet
could've
at 4
printed
yesterday afternoon. I said, we need
Gotta
to meet
meet
at 9.
we generally have work sessions, and I hate to say it, belabor it, but we generally have work sessions every week that go a couple hours minimum. And then we end up putting in between 8 and 20 hours a week, just trying to get through this stuff. But trying to get the financial stuff, because you gotta go through every account.
I understand that.
Yeah, it's just really been difficult.
But I'm just saying it would have been nice if we.
You're welcome to have mine that I
Yeah.
printed out from my own printer
I'll
myself.
leave this one here,
Numbers.
I'll leave this one here, and I'll leave
So we
the,
do have printing fees, so,
Or you can
we
just-
want to save the association the
Pull it
funds
up
and be
on
I
your
have other
responsible.
copies, I'll
phone
leave
and
this
copy
stuff here.
through.
And that's what I meant by apologizing. We're coming into a meeting,
Okay.
and we're just trying to get it done and get on to the next thing. And
Let's
then,
get on to the next thing.
and hopefully we can slow down. We're really hoping that it'll slow down. The accounting part has just killed us. It's absolutely killed us.
I have another question about
Yeah.
the laundry while we were
Sure.
talking.
Yeah.
Oh,
So do you have a question over here, and then we'll come back to you, Marcia?
Are there a reason why we are not getting a revenue from our parking?
Yeah, parking revenue is something that we discuss every year, and we're the only association out here that doesn't charge for parking. And one of the problems we've had in the past is trying to manage that process, It can be quite burdensome, but the other issue is it's money that's gonna come from you, people that rent out here. So it's gonna be a pass-through that's gonna come to you, it's gonna come to us through you anyway, through fees you collect, whether you charge services or you charge a little bit more or not. And it's been the association's feeling not to charge for parking. And it's been the majority of this association has not wanted to charge for parking. If that ever changes, and we're happy to poll it and check that out in January, but it's been pretty much the majority that doesn't want to charge for parking.
Well, we're looking for revenue.
It's a great
That's-
revenue
that's an-
thing.
That's another.
We are,
That's another spot, and I know from being down there quite a bit, we have a lot of folks that park, maybe not now, but they park and disappear and then come back 2 days later, pick up their vehicle and go.
Yeah.
And they're not owners.
one of the
Or guests.
One of the things that has
Yes,
changed,
exactly.
one of the things that has changed in the last couple of years is technology. And Joel and I were just discussing that before we started the meeting. Technology is catching up, and we're looking at alternatives where we can reduce the cost of security at the gate by doing some, we just had that discussion, by doing some digital entry and a process like that. And I asked Joel, could we put money against that? Which was exactly your question. Can we charge against the services? So we continue to look at it. The other phases are coming up with another paid security solution that they want us to take a look at. So we are investigating that because I'd love to see $100,000 or $150,000.
300. What would your take up? Can you
So
expand
we're not
that?
against it. We're just trying to do, but we
Parking
are,
and-
I was just wondering why we wasn't using that.
we're looking at it.
Resource.
We are looking at a new system that they're talking about, and we're investigating that. And Joel's heading up the whole security entry part of that process for the association with the other associations. Believe me, and as we looked at the budget and tried to put it together, that's the first thing we said was, man, we gotta get some more revenue in here.
There's about 10,000 parking passes a year that are right now that are being used for phase one. So, yeah, I know.
And that just gives you an idea of the volume.
10,000.
And that's what I'm saying, most places is at least $25 for a stay of
But you also gotta think about how you're gonna collect that. So like he was talking about, are the owners gonna collect it and then the association's gonna, Grant Sanders and Taylor is gonna invoice you for your
Well,
portion of parking, or you gonna do it at the
Next
gate?
door.
Security
Next door,
doesn't
how do
take
they
money.
do it?
They have an app that there's like a scan thing that they have to do, and that's also why you see our parking, people getting in, they haven't paid their fees, they get here, and that's why we have problems with security backup from people getting on property. We don't have an owner's lane, so people are backing up because they're trying to figure out their app and the phone because they didn't pay their parking fees ahead of time. So the other phases are working. I'm trying to get that more, streamlined, and that's something we were talking about, maybe, seeing what they're gonna do. Because it would be better if we had one system for security, now I have to answer to 15 different systems. Security shouldn't be taking the money for that. We just don't have the ability for them to do that. So you gotta think about, how much is it gonna cost us to do that app? Is it free? Getting it out to owners, how are y'all gonna get it out to your customers to make sure when they rent that they're doing it right ahead of time? Just like the pass. I'm gonna talk about this real quick while we're there. It's not here anymore. The check-in forms.
Oh, I put them
We
on
have
the desk,
people
yeah.
that are not,
Mhm.
just like today, you provide the information you should for the check-in forms, right? When your guest comes here, they're coming on this day to this day to this, they should have it ready at security and say, here I am. But they're not bringing that form. They're not only not completing it, they're not just completing it on their phone, they're not even doing it at all. So we're having to print out the association. We are all paying for extra printing because the guest is not, and that comes in with a business, right? You're gonna have some that always do that. But as an owner, how can we save on the expense side? So, you know what I'm saying? You're talking about expenses and revenues, right? So you wanna look at both sides of the equation at all times. So we've gotta really make sure that we're saying how y'all fill out this check-in form before you get to the security office. I personally, just not a board thing, but I make my guests 24 hours before they come. I want a copy of that, because guess what? If I get a copy of that, then that's confirmation that they've completed it. And my unit is not being the holdup for y'all. That's called accountability. We have an option to do that ourselves. And it's important that we all take those opportunities too, because like we're talking about people coming down here, it's hard to get people to do things on the very own. What can we control? What can we positively change versus what do we need to improve on? So,
Or guests will show up and say, oh, I left that, honey, did you put it in the suitcase? No, I left it on the kitchen table. I thought you grabbed it, whatever happens. But yeah, it's all good information, but
Well,
the reality is,
and they had a lot of problems, and we cracked down on them because we're spending, we're paying a prorated amount for security, and we control security. But security, the vast majority of the labor was going to selling parking passes at the gate. And we're paying for that labor, and it's backing us up. So as they get technology, as technology advances and we can streamline it, because then we have to think downstream what happens when they don't have a parking pass. They come in, how are we gonna handle that? But we are looking at that, and that's something that we're gonna look at real hard, and we're gonna look at it with the other associations, because we'd like to do that together.
we absolutely need to know who's on our property.
Yeah.
When it comes back to that, that's a check and balance system. So technology is a wonderful thing.
And
If
we
you could
really
have a little
don't.
scan
we
thing,
don't, you're
And
right.
We really don't have a clue
so
on that.
reducing that
I've not been
liability is
here.
good.
They're just,
We
there's
agree.
people moving around, especially not in really prime time, but good times of the year. They'll come, they'll park, they'll go down the boardwalk, they'll go fishing, they'll lay on the beach, they'll do whatever they want to. And they're not visitors and they're not owners.
That
It
goes
is-
back to
That's a
security.
fact.
That goes back to
Security should not let them
a
on
vendor,
property
yeah. It
regardless
goes
of what
back
it is.
to-
And I don't
Now, my opinion, a lot of them are people that come here during the week, maybe to work, and on the weekends, they use the facilities. That is, but they are quite a bit of that goes on.
Or I'm going to eat at Sassy Bass and I'll be, what is that? I don't know how that's all.
Anybody that comes in for Sassy Bass is instructed to take a right and go into those parking lots.
They're told to, but
And we get on
they
them.
can park there and then they go. to our
We get
beach
on
or
them quite a
jump in our
bit,
pool or-
and we don't allow deliveries to come down the west side of 3 anymore. And we started to get a couple coming down, and we had to go back to security and say, these are new people, you need to retrain them and make them aware that if I see a truck go down that, one more time, you're gonna have to find another security person. So we do stay on top of it. We do I'm down here, I'm on property almost every day. And I try to watch that to the degree that I can. But I haven't seen any delivery trucks go down 3s when I've been here
Well,
lately.
their employees will park on the west side of Building 3 too.
Yeah, well, then we need to make security aware again. And, I suggested we buy a booth impound some cars. So that's one of my suggestions, so you know how aggressive I am on it.
Charge Sassy Bass parking.
You charge them $100
$150
to get it unbooted,
Sassy
and
Bass
they'll-
parking.
but you're talking to a guy who just got his car impounded in Charleston while he was on vacation, so I'm not the right guy. Was there another question? You had one more before we get to the question, yeah.
I just want to clarify, the Secure Vision, I'm in building 3 and I have my new modem and everything, got the Wi-Fi. But you're saying now that potentially they could run the cable before they do my windows and doors in May, June? Is that
yours
what you said?
completed? Is it all done in the walls?
Does it look like it's an in-between right
No, I
now?
just have the modem
You have
right
the modem
now.
and nothing, it's kind of
No wires.
just plugged in on the outside.
But
and
I mean,
not
I was
gonna
under
stand
the assumption it was gonna happen.
Is that a new modem?
It's Secure Vision's modem.
So yes.
Okay.
up. Do you have a big, large white panel dug out into any of your walls yet?
No, I
You are
do.
not finished yet.
Well, that's what I'm
coming,
saying,
yeah.
but what I'm saying is, it was scheduled to be done May, June, when I'm down the 14 days. But I thought you
Oh,
said
no,
they
they're not-
may
they're
look
not.
that up.
No, they're not linked.
Different.
Windows and balconies are different than Secure Vision. Secure Vision is trying to get it done by the end of this month.
They were trying
Everything,
to, right,
cable,
they have to be finished by 1/1 to go live. That's
Now,
why
they may
there's a
not be able-
separate thing that went out. There was a separate thing about Secure Vision notice that went out that said that they were gonna try to do all this, and they're actually, what the concern was, we were under the extent that, okay, you're gonna, building 3 is gonna be from this date to this date. Well, so they were running ahead of schedule, and we didn't know that they were running ahead of schedule, so we couldn't tell y'all we were running ahead of schedule until y'all were telling us somebody's in my unit. So that's what we're having, they're actually running, but they're gonna have to come back to put that panel in there. It's a huge.
correct, and that's why I was thinking that was gonna be done the May, June timeframe. But that could be any time between now and.
And that's what
And
we're
the
trying to,
31st.
and
So
what
I
we're
have
trying
no
to do,
idea, okay,
we're trying to get them to try to provide us some kind of a schedule
yeah,
where we're really tight on the construction project. This one, we're not, because we're not paying someone to manage the project.
Shouldn't have
And,
been guessed.
So what they're trying to do is make sure you have connectivity on January 1st so that it will be uninterrupted. Some people are gonna have exposed wires on January 1st. So they wanna get everybody to have connectivity by January 1, and then they'll go back and they'll put them in the walls and they'll finish some of those units that they were unable to get.
Making it pretty.
Making
Doing
it
the-
pretty.
the
And
And that's what they were
professional
trying to
installation.
collaborate with the building
okay.
project.
They
That's what I
started
was
with the window balcony project because it was easy for them, but they quickly got ahead of the window balcony.
Okay, that's where I kept thinking,
So
Or are
they're
they
doing
gonna do
temporary
that?
for building 3 and 2 that haven't had the window and door project yet. 1 and 2 that have already had the window and door project, they're trying to go on and do the final product.
so hopefully we'll have
Trying.
another
Advance
timeline
notice.
in case we have renters and,
And that's what we're trying to get
okay,
that narrowed down.
okay. One other quick
Sure.
question, storage rooms, at one point you had mentioned there was plenty of storage rooms for everybody. We're still waiting, do we know?
Well, we're on that this
Okay.
week. Well, we've been on that for the last 2 weeks, but
Okay.
that's a big project
Last
because
2
part of the
years.
budget and trying to understand why we were off $3,000 takes us back into the storage units. So we're gonna clean that up and we'll be making an announcement.
Yeah, at the
about
end of
that.
this week, we'll have firm numbers on
3304.
few
We
that
need
we
that
haven't, yes.
And
Yeah.
locks and key situation and all that
Yeah.
we've asked.
Yeah.
We checked a lot of them, and we did, when I first got, oh gosh, November of 22, I walked all of them that we had keys for, and there were several that had, I don't know, maybe wiring panels in them, or coax cable was run. It was kind of a strange situation. So those are the ones that we thought that we could rent, and we had to take those out because it was told, no, we don't want owners around those structures because we may have to get in there to do some
I
repairs.
think some of those
So-
actually had access to the roof.
They
More
did,
than
and we had to
access,
take
yeah.
those off the list also. So I think it was kind of like any and everybody was just filing a closet to rent, and we had to clean that up a little bit because there are areas of the building that didn't need owner access to. So
But you'll get
We-
all
Is
that.
there
Right.
still a list, like I've supposed to have been on the list a year and a half, or is there still a list, or? am
we
I not on
never
a
saw
list?
a waiting list when we came here, or when I came here. I never saw a true waiting list that was given to me from the
Give us,
past.
give us,
I
give
thought-
us, give us a
We-
chance to run it down.
Right. We are, now this was in the beginning. I do have a list of other ones that have asked for. But like I said, we're trying to inventory some of the ones that we didn't have access to before. But this week, Scott and I
We'll
will
get
have
that-
firm
we'll get that
numbers.
cleaned up. That's-
Yeah,
We're, We just didn't get it done by today.
Right.
But we have all the reports. You got us some of that stuff and we're looking at it.
Now, there
That's
is a
fine,
deadline.
But I mean, I thought I was on a list from when Anchor took over, so I thought I was on a list, but now I might not even be on a list. It
To
might
say-
be
We'll take
further
care of
down the
you.
list.
I'll take care of you.
Yeah.
It's
So,
just frustrating.
There is a deadline also for the ones that do have existing storage units, and we have to be firm on that to be fair. So when I send out the information that your deadline is December 31st, I mean that deadline is December 31st. We have to be fair to other owners that have been waiting. So I just want to stress that when we do send that information, if you are interested in doing that, you have until that deadline to let me know. So
But we'll get something
Yes.
formally
So
on these.
Like, we
Don't
just.
feel bad. I waited for a year.
I know.
Well, I got you one
I
day,
know,
didn't
I got one
I?
day.
And maybe another 3 years before I get on the list.
Well, maybe you could share.
We're gonna have some more inventory for
There's
that,
there's
so
gonna be
we
inventory opening
are.
up.
Yeah.
There's gonna be inventory opening.
People aren't gonna take.
We're trying to
it.
squeeze and make spaces.
Well,
So.
we've had so many units sell and such,
Right.
things
Yeah.
have
That's
had
what I
to
was
have opened up
hoping,
and
January 1 is the renewal date for the storage room, so a
And
lot of
that's-
people won't renew.
that's
Did we
another
get a
accountability.
notice about that? Cause I haven't.
There
seen-
will be some information sent out soon, yes, ma'am.
That's another accountability.
Right.
Topic.
Did I imagine it, or were we talking about having a electric car charging station here that we could make money from?
Yes and no. Okay, so we talked about a Blink charging station, and the cost was about $10,000 to install it. And as a board, and looking at the 3 electric vehicles that came on our property last year, the juice is not worth the squeeze. To
Oh,
put
I
in-
thought we were gonna like let everybody come and
Different
use it
animal.
and make
No,
a lot
so-
of money.
No,
Okay,
there's
yeah.
no money in EV chargers.
there isn't?
There really isn't.
Okay.
The going rate here on average is about $3 an hour to plug in, and for a level 2 charger. And for $6 to get back $8,000 or $10,000 after the install is not there. What we're going to do as an association is we're going to put 2 external 110 plugs so you can use, or outlets, so you can use a class 1 charger, which is basically a battery maintainer that you would use for a boat or a lawnmower or a motorcycle. They're gonna be over by the maintenance warehouse. We're gonna have 2 plugs there. The guest or the owner will be responsible to bring their pigtail to plug into this outlet to charge their vehicle. Because
Okay,
the
I
juice,
thought it was gonna be a big
we had
money
originally
maker.
talked about that, but Beach Club has one, and then there are some on 59 at some of the hotels. But currently, there's not a huge desire or demand for something like that.
It's like
If
10
it
cars.
changes,
We had like 10 cars a week, maybe.
yeah, we had 3 last year.
Yeah,
on
we had 3
property.
last year.
And the ultimate
So, we're
goal,
not making any money.
if the Baldwin County does what they say they do and finish the bicycle path that stops at Peninsula now and goes all the way to the ferry, we'll have a charging station right across the street from us.
Yep.
So we'll milk the cow under the fence.
So
We're still waiting on that.
Yep,
also.
and-
And I got held
probably
back,
will be.
according to Fort Morgan Civic
Yep.
Association, that got held back, so,
Yeah.
you know,
It got held back 5 years ago.
it did.
And
All
I
right.
just wondered, with the laundry situation, I wasn't here all summer. Are there enough washers and dryers in building 4 to meet the demand? That's what I was wondering. Or is it, I mean, we don't even have a place to fold stuff. You fold it on top of the dryer. You know, you said folding tables.
well, I mean, we have the same as we've always.
We
had.
have as many as the building will allow.
Okay, I had
That's the
thought
issue.
we were gonna have.
You have to vent out.
We did want that at
We
one
did.
point. You are correct.
We looked
told We
into-
were gonna have more.
We looked
yes.
into it.
I just wondered if we had an adequate number.
I haven't heard any
I
complaints that we
haven't, I
haven't.
actually
Okay.
haven't heard.
Well, then that's
complaints.
good. I
There's-
just didn't know because
Yeah.
I wasn't here and
The
I've
only-
been wondering.
Timing's everything. If
Yep.
you do your laundry at 8 o'clock on Sunday
And I
or
have
3 o'clock in the morning on Friday, you're probably good.
I have heard the complaint that there's been a couple of times that a machine is down or something, but when I talked to Steve, actually, I think on some of the units, I'm not a technology person, but he installed something that's just not solely related on Wi-Fi, so that those times that people were finding a unit not working and it was Wi-Fi related, he did something different technology-wise, that hopefully that won't happen again. So that was the only complaint I was
just
aware of, is
wondering
that
if
they
there
wouldn't
were
take a
sufficient
card.
number, because I thought we had fewer than we thought we were gonna have, and I just,
I can just say, I haven't, and if anybody else has, I haven't heard any complaints
and
that
that's good. Okay.
it was full when they needed it, but
And the number
we
to
did
those
want more.
machines, the number to those machine, like to call is on the machines. That's not a Triton thing. That is that vendor, call that number because that is that vendor's equipment. We're in that
And it's not,
reserve.
yeah, it's not a board, it's not
I
a
just
Triton.
meant the number of people
We
trying to
understand.
use at the same time was their backlog, that's all I meant, not anything technical.
No, that's fine. We're gonna move to new business and then we'll take questions at the end. One of the things that I mentioned at the beginning was insurance, and it goes back to Rocky, I believe, what you mentioned about reserves, right? And that is that in the past, what we did, we prepaid our insurance. And so we were able to accumulate that money and then pay the insurance. And then insurance went crazy. I will say this, we only had, I saw the report a couple days ago, we only had $2 to $3 billion worth of damage in this hurricane season. In 2017, there was $300 billion worth of losses, insurable losses. So this was a super small year. We're cautiously optimistic that we will be in hopefully in a decent situation getting, I'm not saying it's gonna come down, but hopefully we're gonna be in a situation where it'll moderate, maybe not go up. We just don't know on the insurance side. But one of the decisions the next board's gonna have to make is, because we have people that ask us all the time, can we prepay and avoid interest? It's almost impossible for us to calculate on this window project at this time what the interest is gonna be on the back end until we knew how much cash we were gonna contribute and the next board decides how much reserves are gonna deplete. Then we ought to be able to know. But when it comes to insurance, we could figure that out by doing an assessment up front, giving everybody an opportunity to pay ahead of time, and then look at what the balance is, and then assess that interest payment to the balance, and then amortize that over the people that chose not to pay it up front, and give them an opportunity to pay by a monthly basis. That's something that the board will have to think about in terms of new business, but we'll kick that down to the new board and let them think about it as we come back to insurance time. The other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to move our renewal date from, for some god-awful reason, we're right up against the middle of the hurricane season. We need to try to get it back 30 days and maybe try to get it back another 30 days. That sounds really great, but in this volatile market, it's not as easy, and it's a difficult financial thing to discern because we don't know. We give up 30 days, we've already prepaid that. What's it gonna be if we renew 30 days early? What's our loss gonna be? But it's a financial decision, and we'll bring that up for the association. So those are a couple of things that we're looking at in terms of insurance. The third thing we're looking at is when people get paid a commission and insurance agents get paid a commission and all of a sudden insurance is double and their commission, they're making twice as much, but they're still working for the same client and they're still doing the same work. So we're going to engage our insurance person and we're going to try to do what Kiva did. We will do what Kiva did, but we're going to get disclosure of all the commissions and all the earnings that are associated with it on our side, and then approach our insurance broker and say, look, would you do this for a fixed amount and to go and do all the negotiations and do all the work for us, but we'll pay you as a consultant and we'll fix that amount so that if the insurance rates are abnormally high, they're not making a windfall in insurance. I don't think anybody that's really wants to do business with us is gonna balk at that. And it may not affect how much we end up paying for insurance, but at least it'll save us some insurance commission monies. And that's the approach we're gonna take for that. And then the other thing, if you notice, I don't know if you guys saw the email that I sent out. I know we got a million of them, but I sent one to Daniel Craven on the bylaws. Did you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to get a rewrite of the bylaws in by the January meeting so that if we get a quorum in January, we can adopt the new bylaws and get that cleaned up. And so we're pressuring, the attorney. It's like everything else, we have to wait and wait and wait, but we're trying to get a set of revised bylaws that get us out of the dark ages and get us into where we're at today. Things that may allow us to do things like voting electronically and things that technologies didn't exist 40 years ago.
You're
So-
gonna give us ample time to read them before.
Yes, that's the whole idea.
That's what
That's the
that's
whole
why we're
idea.
asking.
We're only gonna get this window for a quorum probably one more time this next year.
And on that, asking about a quorum, I had a lot of owners say, well, we had a quorum and then we didn't get a chance to do anything. So we discussed this as a board yesterday. That's our message to all of you is yes, we want another quorum again, but please turn agenda items into Stephanie, the secretary, so she can put it on there. If there's something like that that you want to discuss, we need to know ahead of time so we can get it on the agenda.
But let me also be aware, make everybody aware, once we get a quorum, okay, now we had a quorum that was a restricted, we had a special meeting to pass that language that the attorney gave us. So we were restricted in scope. But when we have a January meeting and we have a quorum, okay, then anybody that you're sitting out there, you participate in the meeting. So you can rise to make a motion, you can rise to a point of order, but you can make a motion. And if you decide to say, I think we ought to have pets on the property, and I move that, we allow pets for owners, blah, 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 and someone says second, we're gonna take a vote. And so I'm saying that when we do expose ourselves to a quorum, we expose ourselves to a vote from the floor, and we may pass something like that. Just be aware of that those obligate, that we are obligated to do that and to have that. So those things can change. So, when you have a quorum, it's a great thing, but it's also, it opens up everything else for the possibility of change.
And it should motivate people that,
To come,
however you feel, show up.
Please.
if you want to have pets on property, show up. If you don't want to have pets on property, show up.
If you wanna stay on your property, show up.
Show up. And, yeah, so that's what we'll be working on the annual meeting.
That was our message, because we got that
And
feedback.
Maurice, we owe you guys documents before you walk into the meeting, and we owe you graphs, and we're gonna do a better job in the January meeting. But, we've got 13 days.
But this is a board of director meeting too, and you remember how that went when you were on there? This is for the board and y'all get to come, okay? So there's the difference between an annual meeting, we provide that. The annual meeting is actually for the association. And if you look in our bylaws, yes, bylaw queen, that all says that in there. So this is just a board of director meeting. Thank y'all for attending.
And when we do have the board of director meeting in January, if we do not have a quorum, then the
It moves
board
into that.
can waive the requirement for a quorum for the express purpose of conducting an election, which limits the scope of what can be brought up. So if we don't have a quorum, we're still able to have the election.
And if
But
it's
we're
not
not
on the agenda, it doesn't happen.
That's correct.
So just,
We're
that's
just
just good
trying,
information for everybody, that it answers their question that came up. And there were fair answers, and it was fair to be frustrated. Also, the sound system, things weren't set up right. Stephanie had made an announcement that I don't think a lot of people heard, and everybody turned in their ballots and vacated the premises. So please stick around until the meeting is adjourned.
and having said that, we'll still stick around and answer questions. But why don't we go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and then if anybody wants to get
We
out of
got
here.
one more thing. We got the door. the
Oh,
door.
yeah, we have one more item, new business, which is, Stephanie, you want to bring that up?
Sure. We've had several owners that are concerned about who's coming into their property. Y'all know, according to our documents, we don't need to be drilling in any common areas and things that damaging where you might have water intrusion, things like that. So an owner presented a option that's a peephole cam, so that you can not have to drill into the wall, not have to drill into your door. You literally, the existing peephole, you unscrew it, and it's a little camera that goes in there. It's Wi-Fi, it's battery operated, does not damage the integrity of any structure we have. So that's something that I would like to present to the board, is that we've approved the option to do that, because as long as it does not interfere with the integrity of the building, and it's just that, and that would be on the owner to do, because that's their ability to do that.
Right, do you think we need a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that we approve that as long as it doesn't affect the integrity of the existing door, owners can install a camera.
You've got all the
that
verbiage,
meets
right?
Peephole type.
The peephole type camera.
That's battery operated, and peephole does not alter the structural integrity of the door, right?
Right, that's,
Okay.
Through the people only, not on the sides, not through anything else.
Stephanie, can you get us some links of examples of
I do
that?
have
First of all,
multiple.
is there a second on that? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion that's further discussion? Okay, I don't see any problem with it. I mean, you're the police officer, the guy with all the background and law enforcement.
Here's the
In
issue.
surveillance and all that, as long as we're not, I don't think we have an issue of surveilling, right?
Not on private, the issue, if there is one, is between the owner and the renter of the property, not the association.
Okay.
So that's just a disclosure thing to your guest, if you choose to put something like that in there.
And if you're renting, you shouldn't put it in there.
It has to face out.
Yeah.
Okay, it cannot face
I think you
in.
should actually.
I hate that you had to say that, but.
That's what I was thinking. That is exactly what I
And
was
while we're at it, there are some options. So building 4, building 1, this doesn't matter, but building 2 and 3 owners, it does matter. There's options on some of these cameras that you can see the neighbor across from you's door. So you may have an option to blur out their real room number if you want to. There's options and possibilities. Like Lynn was asking, do I have a bunch of links? Yeah, anybody can go to peephole door camera on google.com and there's about 1,500 options. I'm not gonna say what I would recommend because I don't have any trademark in that, but there's some pretty cool ones out there. So look at the reviews and choose wisely and do not damage the door. Thank you very much.
All right.
Every time somebody walks by your door, it's gonna go off.
It's okay. That's between the owner. If they want those apps doing, that's the owner.
All
Not the
right,
association.
so that ends the discussion, and we'll take a vote on that.
Yeah.
All in favor of Tammy's proposal?
Yep.
Aye.
Against, and 1 abstention, right? Okay, so that approves, that's approved. Is there any other new business, Stephanie?
No.
Okay, I think that's enough anyway. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
And I'll
Second,
second it.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed? 1 abstention. The meeting is adjourned. Now we'll continue to take your questions if you got them.
Thank you, everyone who tuned in
Thanks,
online.
and thanks for taking the time to come,
Yeah.
you know, and I'll just say this.
We had 10 owners in attendance.
There have
Plus 5, 4. And it's recorded though.
There were times, and I expressed this to the board, there were times this year, especially late spring and early summer, where I was embarrassed that we couldn't produce numbers. And I'm surprised that we didn't catch a harder time because of it, because we were really trying to get this stuff straightened out. And we just, every time we peeled a layer back, we had to dig into another layer and another layer and another layer, and it just took forever. So I was embarrassed that we couldn't. I was embarrassed the way we were treated with Anchor and but we at least got into it. We figured it out within 6 or 8 weeks. We were back on top of it. But I can tell you that I'm not embarrassed now. And if there's anything that this association ever does, we have got to stay with the professional accounting firm. It's just too much money and way too complex to
And it
rely on
shouldn't
these problems.
transition every time a board member.
And
changes.
shouldn't transition every time there's a new board. And I think if we can keep continuity with that,